Chapter 41. Dead End. The wave of the heartless sea had gradually become calm, but the fear in everyone's heart had not lightened. Abyssal Viper's giant body sat in front of them like a demon from ancient time. The giant object slightly swung its head. It seemed like it did not expect there will be living human under forsaken abyss. It looked at them, did not make a move. The calm Anon was the first putted herself together. She turned her head and saw Shah Danan was still staring at the Abyssal Viper. She pulled his sleeve. Shah Danan shook, then turned his head. Anon whispered, "We step back first." Shah Danan immediately understood, nodded his head, supported Anon walked back. Bilu, who was next to Negar, saw them moving. She cried, "Don't move." Shah Danan and Anon startled. But just in the blink of the eye, the green light in Abyssal Viper's eyes glared, alarmed, and let out a heaven-shocking roar. Everyone here covered their ears, but they could still feel their ears ringing. While Shah Danan was still in the state of shock, Abyssal Viper's body moved and the tail that was soaked in the water swept. Immediately a 40 feet high, several hundreds feet wide wall of water mightily crushed upon them. Among the water, there was a black tail of the snake striked at them. While the water was still several yards away, the gale already hit their faces, almost knocked them down. If really get hit by this tide of water wall and the black tail, they will crushed into thousands pieces. Shah Danan did not put much into consideration. His right arm carried Anon, summoned fire stick and flight back with all his strength. But the wall of water was fast as wind, faster than any movement. Shah Danan hadn't made 10 feet, the wall of water already caught up to him. The roar of water was next to ears. Shah Danan's body tightened. There was almost no additional thought in his brain. At this fate-deciding moment, Shah Danan shouted and flight upward. But when he was only a little more than 10 feet above the ground, he felt the water surrounded him. Boom! He unwillingly drew into the giant tide, his body was wet all over. Then he heard Anon screamed, his arm loosened, under the unstoppable strong force, he and Anon were separated. Shah Danan was paled with surprise. He struggled to get to Anon, but the strength of the billow was so strong, at the next moment, the two people were already several yards away from each other. Seeing the raging tide roared wildly, Anon, who was next to him a moment ago, had disappeared in the darkness. Shah Danan trembled, his brain was in chaos, his entire body was pushed forward by the giant wave. When Shah Danan felt every part of his body was about to be rent apart by the strong pressure, he suddenly peered and saw, among the water, where the sound came from, a black figure flashed. Abyssal Viper's giant black tail struck toward him. Spray and rocks were everywhere when the black tail passed. The momentum was unstoppable. Shah Danan did not think he can be alive if he get hit by this giant tail. At this critical moment, the strength came out of nowhere again from Shah Danan. In the water, green light glowed again, surrounded Shah Danan, escaped and flight upward to the sky at more than 10 feet above the giant wave. Just when Shah Danan overjoyed, an unstoppable great force swept at his lower body. Instantly, his entire body shook. Though it was just the leftover force, his vision turned black, almost knocked out. If not because he knew it was matter of life and death, and forced himself to remain conscious, he will probably die here. Though it was like that, the strength of Abyssal Viper's tail was so strong. Shah Danan's body shocked with bone-crashing pain. It was like his entire body was going to split apart. And in this giant tide, he also did not have any remaining strength, he was hit by the strong force too far away. He was unwillingly flight to the endless darkness. When his body turned over, he saw giant tide and tail quickly swallowed Bilu and other people. The yellow clothes men escaped to all direction, but soon they were hit down by the giant wave. The green dress girl rose up. Both hands made a gesture. White glow lighted up, the white flower rose. Just in a moment, it turned into 6 flowers, circling the flower in the middle. Every flowers had beam of pure white light connected with each others, formed a white wheel. Bilu was pale, but she wasn't in panic. Once the white wheel was formed, it began to spin rapidly. The bright white light blocked the giant wave. Just a second, the water of the wave accumulated. The force was terrifying. With this moment of opportunity, Bilu lifted up. But just at that moment, the sound of the wave became heavier. It was the giant black tail, swept across. The white wheel demolished instantly, could not block just a little force of the tail. The beautiful girl was about to get hit by the giant snake tail. Suddenly within the water, the masked woman reappeared. A soft, yellow round object flashed in the air, then swiftly pushed Bilu away before the giant tail could get her. Bilu barely escaped from the deadly object, but she was still hit by the force, then she fell into the darkness. At the next moment, the figure of the masked woman also disappeared in the mighty wave. The strength of the abyssal viper's tail was unpredictable. Sha Danan could only hear the sound of wind next to his ears while his entire body flew backward. If he hit it on something, like hard stone wall, all of his bones were going to crushed. But knowing is still knowing. Sha Danan had no control of his body. His life was depend on fate. But the forsaken abyss was so large. Flew for a while, he still hadn't hit on anything. Sha Danan then felt the speed slowed down, and slowly descending. Seemed like the force was began to lighten. Fell on the ground surely does not feel good, but it was still better than hit it on the wall. Just when Sha Danan was relieved, he suddenly felt the darkness in front of him had turned into solid, and crushed upon him. It was like a precipice lay before him. Sha Danan curled up and covered head, and hit it on it. Bang! The stones scattered, the stars flying. The whole body of Sha Danan was shocked, then mouth full of blood spew out. At that instant, he felt it was like his body was fallen apart. If not because he had both Fua and Dago's incarnation protected him, he could be dead. Though it protected him, it still not felt good. His entire body stopped at the wall, and fell down weakly. On the way he felt, he hit it on the hard wall several times. Among the crushing sound, shaped pain all over his body. He did not know how many bones were broken, he think not a single part of his body was complete anyway. After another hit, Sha Danan almost gave up all his hope, but then with the weak green light of the fire stick in front of his chest, he blurrily saw a black shadow below him. It seemed like an old tree grow on cliff. At this critical moment, although he did not imagine that there could be a tree grow on a cliff wall under place like forsaken abyss, he naturally held out his hand and grabbed that old tree. The speed he fell was faster, but at this spark of instant, he managed to grab the old tree. As he caught it, it did not feel cold like the wall, but a bit of warm. But the force of falling was too strong, and the old tree did not well rooted. Though Sha Danan grabbed the tree trunk, but the tree shook severely. After several swings, the tree and Sha Danan fell. At the moment he fell, Sha Danan's heart sunk. The heart was like fall into bottomless abyss. His body was still falling, but due to that pause, the speed was slowed down. After a loud bang, he fell on the ground and passed out. After a long while, Sha Danan slowly woke up. Before he could open his eyes, he felt shape pain all over his body, like fallen apart. But since he could feel pain, it appeared he's still alive. His heart wasn't feeling all bad. He opened his eyes, what he saw startled him. At this moment, he was at a sealed and moist place, most likely a cave. It was about 2 men high, but only 10 feet wide, very narrow. The side was all cold and hard stones. It was almost the same as the cliff. If this is not inside of the cliff, it must be near cliff. But the stone in the cave seem having some kind of glowing stuff. Not large but a lot of them. They let out beams of gentle light, bright in the cave. Sha Danan looked closely at the cave. One end was a pile of rocks, blocked the road tightly. Another end extended farther, but then there was a turn, he couldn't see what it is leading to. He startled on the ground, then he decided to get up. But when his body moved, his left hand pushed against the ground, all the instant his entire body was filled with severe pain. He cried. Ah! His body trembled, his left hand was especially painful. HMPH. A cold snort suddenly came out from deeper in of the cave. Sha Danan was surprised, he turned his head and a lady came out from the turning. Green dress and a pretty face, isn't that the young Falcon heretic? They were in confrontation not long ago. Now Sha Danan suddenly saw there was person from Falcon, he held up fire stick and alarmed. He forgot the pain in his body. Bilu glared at him, but she had no intention to fight. She appeared to be lost, like she had no spirit. She impatiently said, okay, look at your silly face, several of your bones are already broken, you still in such high spirit. Sha Danan frowned, but seeing Bilu had no intention to fight, though it was awkward, but he slowly lowered his fire stick. Once he relaxed, immediately the pain came back. He couldn't help but cried out again. Bilu looked at this righteous young man's weird look, she couldn't hold her chuck. The surrounding feeling was softened, but after the laughter, she gave a long sigh with sorrow. Sha Danan snorted. He was laughed by a young girl and embarrassed, he said angrily, what are you laughing at? Bilu looked at him, said, I am laughing at you. Sha Danan noticed that she spoke so directly, like a little shameless. The anger rose inside him. He said, "What's so funny? Let's see if you crushed on it." Bilu's face changed and was about to teach this ignorant brat a lesson, but then she held back, sighed, "We won't able to live for long, what is the use to argue with you?" Shah Danan was alarmed, but after he heard what the girl said, he startled and asked, "What did you said?" Bilu looked at him, said, "This is a cave, can't you see?" Shah Danan said, "Yeah. Then what?" Bilu snorted, then pointed to the pile of rocks. "This is the only exit, now it got buried by those rocks. Go and try break through it." Shah Danan's mouth dropped. He looked at the rocks, seeing it was blocked tightly, without single gap. He knew his own strength. If it was fighting enemy, his fire stick and his cultivation could still have some use, but if digging the mountain like Yugong, it was not his strength. Startled for a moment, then he suddenly thought of an important question. He quickly turned his head and asked, "I remember I fell on the ground after I hit it on the wall of the cliff. How did I end up here in the cave?" Bilu said lightly, "I dragged you here." "What?" Shah Danan was mad again. Bilu looked at him, said, "I landed not far away from where you fainted and saw you. The abyssal viper was chasing after us. I raised my head and saw the place where you pulled the old tree off was a cave. There was light came out from it. The cave was not large, so I hid in there. Before I left, I felt pity for you so I took you in, dummy." Shah Danan frowned. Why the entrance was blocked? Bilu shrugged, with an unfortunate look on her face, said, "The abyssal viper could not enter. Out of anger, its tail hit it on the wall, then half of the mountain collapsed, buried this place, buried us." Shah Danan looked at her for a while, then doubtfully said, "Really?" Anger rose on Bilu's face, then she picked up a large rock and threw it at him, said, "Am I lying to you? I should have let you die." Shah Danan was not fast enough to dodge it, so he used his arm to protect his head. Unexpectedly, the rock hit his left arm, the pain pierced into his heart. His vision blacked, almost fainted again. Bilu saw Shah Danan's face immediately pale and held his left arm with a painful look. Her heart jumped, then said coldly, "Don't play dead, I have seen people like you a lot of time." Shah Danan had no strength to argue with her about play dead, he himself was about to pain to death. His entire arm already turned numb due to the pain. Bilu watched for a while, seeing that he does not seem faking. She walked to Shah Danan, did not care about Shah Danan's look, she squeezed Shah Danan's arm several times. Shah Danan was sweated in pain, said furiously, "What are you doing?" Bilu did not get mad, instead she had a little apology, said, "Your arm bone is broken." Shah Danan snorted, but he was stubborn, said, "It was broken because of abyssal viper, it got nothing to do with you. Go away." Bilu looked at him again, snorted, then did not say anything, walked away and stood at the side, watched at him coldly like there will be a show. The pain was extremely painful, but Shah Danan did not lose face in front of the heretic no matter what. He forced himself to stand up. Looked around, the injuries were mostly scratches and outer injuries, only the left arm was broken. It was fortune in misfortune. But the broken bone pain was still difficult to bear. After few movements, the pain caused the sweat came out again. Shah Danan gritted his teeth. He had learned some healing technique when he was in Bamboo Peak. He wanted to fix his arm. But he looked around, they were all strange rocks, not a single that was straight enough like a wood stick to fix his arm. He couldn't help but became anxious. Bilu suddenly said at the side, "Your stick." Shah Danan startled, then he realized fire stick was a foot long, just right for he need. He looked at that young girl and wanted to thank her. But seeing her despised face, the words were swallowed back, he said, "I already thought of it, you don't need to tell me." Bilu curled her lips, "Then what were you looking for?" Shah Danan said angrily, "Can't I looking for an exit? Am I going to stuck in here forever if I can't find the exit?" Then, he suddenly thought of something and shocked. He turned and asked Bilu, "Right, did you saw my Shiji?" Bilu was startled by his sudden anxiety, then she shook her head. That time was the matter between life and death, who have the time to care about other people? Shah Danan was quiet while his heart was very worried. Anan was poisoned, now facing this disaster, her life is in danger. He sighed and lowered his head. Bilu's face softened, watching this young man lowered his head and fixed his arm on the ugly fire stick. She asked, "Are you in good relationship with your Shiji?" Shah Danan startled, shook his head. "No, but she is still why I need to tell you?" Snorted, then Shah Danan ignored her. He tore a piece of his clothes, used his mouth and right hand to tie up his left arm. Then he looked at the large pile of rocks again, at the end he sighed, and turned, walked into the cave. Seeing Sha Danan walking further into the cave, Bilu asked, "Where are you going?" Sha Danan said while walking, "I am buried in here alive, at least need to see what it is in there." Bilu snorted, but still in this lifeless cave, she still followed him. Seemed like there would be no fear if two people walked together. After the turn, a long corridor appeared before Sha Danan. It was similar to where he was, but a little wider. The stones from both sides were also glowing, bright in this place. But the dust on the ground was very thick, leaving clear footprints. There were footprints on the road, they seemed to be left by Bilu when she first arrived here. After a while, they reached the end of the long corridor. There was another turning, at the same time there was faint sound of water. Bilu suddenly said behind him, "Sha Danan." "What?" Sha Danan answered, but immediately turned, said, "How do you know my name?" Bilu chuckled. "You told me in Sunstream City." Sha Danan recalled it. He turned his head away embarrassingly, and said, "Why there is water sound?" Bilu said impatiently, "This is the end of the tunnel. There is a screen of water, other than that there is no exit. Alas, can't believe that I will die in this place." Sha Danan ignored her and continued walking. After a while, the sound of water was getting louder gradually. Soon, he saw at the end of the tunnel, there was a screen of water hanging from the top of the cave. The water splash was crystal clear and beautiful. The water landed on a small pond. If not because they were in a dead end, it was a good scenery. But at this moment, no one would have the motive to appreciate such scenery. Sha Danan went in front of the waterfall, he closely examined it for a moment, then his heart was frozen. Behind the waterfall was a hard stone wall, not different than the stones on the side. The small pond's bottom could clearly saw. There was no exit for the water, probably sink into the earth. And for the above, there were stones with water dropping. Where can be an exit? Sha Danan turned his head, met Bilu's eyes. They looked at each other for a moment and remained silent. This cave became dead quiet. Sha Danan's thought was distraught. Facing this situation, also worry about Anon who went missing, and additionally the injury of his left arm. The pain coming from there was hard to bear. Bilu looked at him, her heart couldn't bear it, she said quietly, "Sit down and rest for a while. We will patiently work our way out of this place." In this dead end, Sha Danan's hostility toward her was lightened. If they were in outside, he naturally irreconcilable with this Falcon heretic. But now they were going to die in here soon, how would they care about factions difference? Sha Danan quietly sat down, looked at the surrounding blankly. Then he stared at the stone wall near the water, his mind thought, "Can't believe the first time leave the mountain I have to so many obstacle, now I am in a dead end. If master find out, he will probably scold this dishonored disciple. If Linger Shiji find out, don't know if she will." Bilu looked at him, saw Sha Danan was a little strange, she asked, "What are you thinking?" Sha Danan woke up, his face blushed, but how he would willing to tell the truth. His eyes peered and changed the topic. "There are so many strange things in Forsaken Abyss, look at the few red places on the stone wall. When water flow past it, they look just like blood." Bilu suddenly jumped up, eyes widened, her face was nervous, quickly asked, "What did you say?" "There was a legend in China about an old man named Yugong, foolish old man. He one day decided to remove all earth from the two mountains so his children don't need to travel across the mountain every time they need to go to the city. His action drew the Jade Emperor's attention, Lord of Heaven. Jade Emperor then sent 2 of his men and removed the mountains in one night and helped Yugong." Chapter 42, Blood Drop Cave. Sha Danan did not expect Bilu would have such great reaction. He was surprised by her. He pointed to the top of the cave, said, "There are a few red stone." Bilu immediately walked to it and looked carefully at the top. Through the water drops, there were total of 7 red stones that were about the size of half of the palm. The texture was same as other stones, just the color were different. Sha Danan saw Bilu was excitedly and absorbedly looking at the stones, he himself couldn't help but curious. He rose up and walked to it. The 7 red stones scatteredly located on the top, formed a weird shape like a hook. Especially the color, even they were washed by the water for so many years, they were remain blood red. Even when those crystal drops flew past the red stones, they turned into the color of fresh blood, then slowly dropping, like blood dropped from the top of the cave. But once the water drops was away from the red stones, they returned to its normal, clear color. As he was watching, Bilu was murmuring, blood drop cave, blood drop, ha. Bilu was overjoyed and smacked Sha Danan with her right hand. The strength was not weak. Sha Danan's face paled instantly. Sha Danan was flamed in anger. Just when he was about to shout back at her, he saw that she was smiling, completely not care about what she just did. She was filled with excitement, said, "You black-heart old men, built blood drop cave in such place, no wonder why we can't find it for 800 years. Sha Danan was surprised, but then after a thought, he remembered Bilu had interrogated him about blood drop cave. Now he understood. He snorted, said, "Evil's teaching." Bilu's mood was great. She did not get mad. She smiled and said, "I am evil, so what? I still need to be grateful for your help of finding this place." Sha Danan was not happy about it. Especially seeing the beautiful smile of Bilu, there was a flame rose in his heart. He felt since he helped the Falcon heretic, if his master and elders know it, they are probably going to punish him. But as he thought about that, he reminded that he couldn't even leave this place now. What's the use of thinking the future? He immediately disheartened, sat down angrily. Bilu was so happy at that moment, she did not notice Sha Danan's action. Falcon was the most ancient. There were many factions, rise and fall was very common. 800 years ago, when Elder Blackheart was in Bloodfurger, they were the leader of the Falcon. Their strength was unyielding, possessed with many talented people. Elder Blackheart was elder of cultivation. But as time passed, and also several conflicts with the side of good, Bloodfurger weakened and replaced by other factions. Today, there were 4 main Falcon factions. They were Lupin, Venom, Longevity, and Vim. But if compare their power, none can match the glorious Bloodfurger of the past. Within the Falcon, throughout 800 years, there was a rumor said that after the battle between good and evil, though the leaders of Bloodfurger were all slain, there were many secret espers stored in Blood Drop Cave, of Bloodfurger's base, Cave of Fangs. For 800 years, Falcon secretly sent their men to Cave of Fangs many times. Even the Forsaken Abyss was searched, they were all returned with empty hand. Though Bilu was still young, she was already an important person of one of the 4 main Falcon faction, Vim. This trip to the extremely dangerous, Forsaken Abyss, she was greatly trusted by the Vim Archlord. Now the place that couldn't find by the countless of ancestors for 800s had appeared before her. How could she not happy? She even forgot that she was in a hopeless situation. Bilu stared at the top of the cave, then rose up, carefully touched those red stones. They were cold and nothing different than the other stones. She softly hit those red stones, but nothing happened. Beside excitement, there was also nervousness on her face. Then she pulled, knocked, lifted, smacked, pushed each of those red stones. But everything stayed the same, nothing happened. Sha Danan watched her from below, joy passed through his heart. He couldn't help but laughed. "I think this is not Blood Drop Cave, you guessed wrong." Bilu couldn't do anything. She sat down and glared at Sha Danan. But she was uncertain. Did I really guessed it wrong? For the following 4 hours, Sha Danan sat on the ground, watched this green-dressed girl Bilu walked around, frowned and pondered, and often used new idea to hit those red stones, but none worked. After a while of watching, Sha Danan felt his stomach rumbled. He was hungry. He putted his hand into clothes and wanted to take out some food. But it was empty, probably lost it when he fell into the water. Now he is hungry, there are no food inside the cave, and the pond is so clear that there are not a single fish. The hunger in his stomach was getting heavier, more and more difficult to bear. Sha Danan couldn't do anything but drank the water from the pond. It was helpless. He sighed grievingly. He is probably going to starve to death in here. Bilu showed no sign of hunger. All of her mind were into the 7 red stones. She had bothered with it for entire day, but still got nothing. She sat down, but her eyes still stared on those red stones. Sha Danan looked at her, couldn't help but reminded her, what is the use of looking at it? If we don't think of a way out, we would probably going to starve to death in here. Bilu's body moved a little, seemed like she remembered there was still a disciple from the side of good next to her. She turned and looked at him, suddenly asked, "You are hungry?" But Sha Danan could not lose his face in front of her no matter what. He immediately shook his head, said, "No." But then his stomach was going against him. It rumbled after he said that. Bilu couldn't hold her chuckle. Sha Danan blushed and really wanted to hide into the ground. Bilu laughed, but took out a bag of food and handed to Sha Danan, said seriously, "I say you better help me think of a way to open Blood Drop Cave." Sha Danan snorted, he turned away, ignored the food, and said certainly, "You think one bag of food can bribe me, don't think about it." Bilu startled, rolled her eyes, then smiled, "You are wrong. I am saying we are now in a dead end, if there is no way out, we are certain to die in here. But before us, there is a blood drop cave. If we can find it, there is probably an exit in there." Sha Danan agreed it was logical. For survive, it is not bad idea to find the blood drop cave since there could be an exit, otherwise they are certainly going to die. But his stubborn temper ignored the food Bilu handed to him. He rose up and looked at those red stones again. Bilu was not mad, she looked at his back and smiled, and then also looked at the top of the cave. The 7 red stones lined up in a shape of a hook on the wall of the top. Beside the red color, there was no difference than other stones. Sha Danan looked at it for a while and couldn't get anything out of it. He planned to hit those stones. But then he remembered Bilu had tried everything, so he gave up. First, the two lifted their heads and observed, but later, they were tired and sat on the ground. Finally, Sha Danan did not care anything about manner, that's what a person who is about to die do. He lay on the ground and watched the top of the cave. After a while, without himself notice, he had drowsily fell asleep. This sleep lasted a while. When Sha Danan woke up and opened his eyes, he found Bilu was still staring at the 7 red stones with her bright eyes. Sha Danan was quite admire this girl in his heart. He sat up, but unexpectedly his stomach suddenly rumbled again. Seemed like very hungry, completely not care about its master's face. The cave originally was quiet except for the sound of the water. The rumble sound issued and immediately caught by Bilu's ears. She turned and looked at him. Sha Danan was ashamed. A person can die, but the face can never lose. He immediately turned his head away and not looked at Bilu. But he could feel his face was burning. He laughed hollowly, then walked to the pond, wanted to drink some water to lighten the hunger. The water from the pond was most likely the spring coming from the underground. Beside the icy coolness, it was also a little sweet. But after Sha Danan drank it, the hunger in his stomach became stronger. But water cannot substitute food. Sha Danan sighed and stared at the water blankly. The water dropped from the top of the cave, hit it on the water and created waves of ripple. Under the water, it reflected his languished face, with a little bit red. A little bit red, Sha Danan suddenly surprised why there the water reflection had redness. He forced and saw there was several red dots on his reflection. But that was not right. He looked closely, then looked at the stone wall. It was the red stone's reflection on the water and combined with his own reflection. Sha Danan relieved, but at that moment, something came into his mind. He took a step back, stared at the water. He saw the reflection of the 7 red stones slowly appeared on the pond among the ripple. Because they were reflection, their lining was no longer look like a weird hook, but more like a palm. Sha Danan stood there and couldn't say anything. At that instant, he was suddenly in a hesitation. Like he stood at the crossing, but where to go? After that feeling passed, he turned. "Hey." Bilu was still looking at the stone wall above her. She said unconcernedly, "I am not Hey. That's what you said when we first met." Sha Danan paused, the words that were about to come out were swallowed back. But for some reason, he had an unusual patience toward this arrogant girl. He said, "Then who are you?" Bilu turned and smiled, said, "I am Bilu." Sha Danan repeated it twice in his heart, then shook his head, said, "Come here and take a look." Bilu was a little puzzled, rose up and walked to him said, "What?" Sha Danan pointed to the water. Bilu bended down and looked. She saw the waves of the water, but then after she focused, she could see the 7 red stones' palm-like reflection. Bilu was shocked, she quickly turned, said, "This is." Sha Danan shook his head. "I accidentally saw it, it maybe not but maybe." Before he finished, Bilu already said, "No matter what, we need to try it." Then she did not say any more useless thing and stepped into the water. Sha Danan was surprised. Just within a second, the water wet her dress, but she did not mind it, only quietly waiting. The scattered water due to she stepped into the water was gradually settled down. Bilu quietly waited for the 7 stones' reflection appeared on the water again. Sha Danan watched her from the ground. The pearl-like water drops landed on this beautiful girl's hair, shoulders, landed on her face, dress. The clear drops slipped down from her black hair, slowly flew past her snow-white skin. It was like even her beauty was like the clear water. Sha Danan suddenly enchanted. The original sound of water in the cave suddenly went to far away. In his eyes, there was only a girl who stood in the water like a lotus with her soul-touching beauty blue against his face. The 7 stones' reflection slowly appeared, like a hand quietly lay underwater. Bilu focused at those stones' positions, then let it out her right hand, and pressed on the hand. Her hand passed through the gentle water. The red stone's reflection fluttered. The light it reflected on this beautiful girl's face, caused her face shine softly. The pond was very shallow. Soon, Bilu's hand reached the bottom. There was thin layer of sand lay on the bottom. She could feel there were 5 places that were slightly pointed up right under her fingers. She was delighted. She softly brushed the bottom. Under the sand, there were 5 small stones embedded on the ground, glowed with red light. Bilu didn't hesitate. She pressed them with 5 fingers, then she raised her head. No single movement. The happiness on Bilu's face froze. Her eyes met with Sha Danan's, then she turned away again. Sha Danan was about to say something to comfort her, suddenly Bilu thought of something. She searched carefully at the position of the reflection of the 2 remaining red stones, then she found 2 more stones. This time she seemed more nervous. She carefully putted her left hand on it, then pressed the 7 stones all at once. At that instant, Sha Danan and Bilu thought they failed again. The cave was quiet, there was no sound other than the water. And then, after the long moment they had waited, a sharp but heavy tika sounded in the cave. Bilu and Sha Danan looked at it. Behind the screen of water, the stone wall that was once flawless, hard, had sank in. Although slow, it finally showed a new cave entrance. Sha Danan stared at the secret open. His heart was excited, scared, but in deep of his heart, like he was not willing to admit, he was curious. The important place of Falcon for 800 years, what is in there? Bilu slowly walked back to the ground and stood next to him. Her eyes were filled with smile. Sha Danan peered at her. Seeing her elegant beauty, and with the water drop softly silped off from her face and fell down, almost like hit it into his heart. His body shook, turned away and not look at her. He said quietly, "Congrats." Bilu seemed startled a little, but the smile stayed in her eyes. Her voice was also gentle, said, "It is thanks to your carefulness." But Sha Danan, for some reason, his mouth was dry, his face was heated. He took a step away, and subconsciously get away from this girl, said, "Why don't you go in then?" Bilu looked at him, suddenly smiled, "You seem like fear me." Sha Danan immediately shook his head hard, said, "No, no." Bilu looked at him for a while, then nodded, smile was still on her face. She said, "Let us go in together." Sha Danan was surprised, hesitated, then said, "No, don't. This is your Falcon place, you can go in yourself." Bilu snorted, said, "If there is an exit in there, are you still not going in?" Sha Danan startled, scratched his head, said, "That's right, let us go then." Bilu smiled and nodded. She stepped into the water again, walked past the water screen and entered the cave. Sha Danan hesitated for a moment, then followed. It was a ghostly tunnel. The glowing objects on the wall were much less in number than outside. Although they could still manage to see, it was very dark. Sha Danan and Bilu were very cautious as they walked. This was the first time anyone been here for the past 800 years. Who knows, did those old monster of Bloodfurger left some powerful seal. But the way was peaceful. There was no accident. The path was winding, dark and long, and also slowly going upward. Sha Danan roughly calculated, he and Bilu were probably at the center of the mountain. While he was thinking, Bilu, who was walking in front of him, suddenly stopped, said quietly, "We are there." Sha Danan's heart jumped. He went forth and saw at the end of the tunnel, there was bright beam of light shined in. He could see it was a large stone chamber. They looked at each other. Bilu began to walk toward there. As they got closer, they could clearly see the detail of the stone chamber. The stone chamber was in circle form. In the other side of the chamber, there was a tunnel. It appeared this is not the end. At the left side of the stone chamber, there was 2 large stone statues. One was kind, and smiling. Its dress was like fluttered by the wind. Kind of like Buddhist Avalokitesvara. Other was totally different. Aggressive appearance. Black face and horn. 8 hands and 4 heads. There was blood next to his mouth. Cause anyone who looked at it to shiver. In front of the 2 statues, there was a stone table with a censer on it. Couple bags of incense lay next to it. They were all covered with dust. Probably it never had incense for 800 years. On the other end of the stone chamber, there were several futon lay on the floor randomly. Other than that, there was nothing. Shah Danan was puzzled by what he saw. But Bilu's face was serious. She took a futon. After she cleaned up the dust, she putted it in front of the statues. Then she picked up the incense from the table, and used the flint she carried and lighted it up, putted it in the censer. After that, she returned to the futon, and kneeled down. In the stone chamber, there was only light smoke rose in her kneel on the ground. Shah Danan stood behind her, listened to her voice echo in the stone chamber. Nether Mother, Heaven Vidyaraja, Holy Faction's 43rd disciple Bilu Sinsari praying. Holy Faction faced tragedy and had weakened for long time. Many followers had sacrificed one after another for rebuild the Holy Faction. Wish Mother and Vidyaraja can pity the world, grant my wish, rebuild the Holy Faction, save the people, together we shall reach the realm of longevity, immortal, bliss, and happiness. Shah Danan realized those two statues probably were the evil gods that the falcon worships. He couldn't help but laughed coldly. He turned away and not look at it anymore. Chapter 43, Librews. Bilu kowtowed 3 times seriously and sincerely, then she rose up and peered at Shah Danan, and saw him was looking away and standing still. She frowned, but did not say much, and said lightly, let's go. When they were walking into this tunnel at beginning, Shah Danan had positive feeling about this girl. However, as he saw these 2 evil statues, it reminded him of faction difference and the teaching of elders. His face colded, slightly nodded, said, okay. Bilu looked at him, then walked deeper into the tunnel. Shah Danan followed behind her. This time didn't take long. They soon arrived in a spacious area, but it did not decorated like the stone chamber. It was a cave filled with limestones. The limestones were all strange and colorful. Before the 2 of them, there was a large stone tablet. 10 characters were flamboyantly carved. A unknown currency copyright A degree A I 1/4 A AC copyright A ACI 1/4. Each of the characters were about half a man's size. The writing was ancient, with powerful strength, and flew across the tablet like a dragon, like it was raging the wind and coming out alive. At first it was nothing, but after Shah Danan stared at it for a moment, he suddenly felt dizzy. He couldn't help but took a step back. He was surprised, and quickly pulled himself together. The characters were still on the tablet, did not move, but the spirit was surprising. While Shah Danan was still in surprise, Bilu already walked past the stone tablet and went deeper into the cave, so he followed. Past the stone tablet, behind it, all kinds of limestones were everywhere. They walked among the stone forest for a while. Bilu suddenly stopped and gasped. At the same moment, Shah Danan discovered the fire stick, which was used to fix his arm, had glowed with strange light. Especially the orb on the fire stick, it glowed with an abnormal green light. But this time it was soft, like meeting an old friend that hadn't met for long time, with endless of thought and nostalgia. Shah Danan curiously looked ahead. His eyes passed Bilu and saw what surprised Bilu. There was a smooth stone wall. On both sides of the wall, there was a tunnel leading to unknown place. Before the wall, there was a blue stone platform with skeleton peacefully sat on it. The orb on the fire stick glowed gentle green light to that skeleton. Bilu was in front of him. She did not notice Shah Danan's strange expression and the change of the fire stick. After the surprise, she quickly calmed down. She was a falcon after all, how would she fear a skeleton? She stepped forth, looked at it careful, but did not find anything surprising. She turned and smiled at Shah Danan. Maybe this is the world-shocking Elder Blackheart 800 years ago. Shah Danan naturally had no positive feeling toward falcon people. He snorted and said, shouldn't we hurry and look for a way out? Bilu peered at him. She curled her lips, said, go find it yourself. Shah Danan startled. He snorted, though he was a bit unwilling, but he still turned and entered the left tunnel. After few steps, he shook his head, thinking why he ran out of patience toward this falcon girl so easily. Just a little thing he would have such great reaction. Probably in her eyes, she was laughing at him. But thinking was still thinking after all. Since he took that step then it was impossible to return. After several steps, he did hear anything behind him. It was appeared that Bilu did not follow. Shah Danan was disappointed somehow, but then he scolded himself, useless. He pulled himself together, then carefully walked deeper into the tunnel. The tunnel was no different than other ones, just darker and more ghostly. It was almost totally dark at deeper in. The road was also longer. He couldn't understand how the Bloodfurger was able to begin such great project. After walking for a while, Shah Danan suddenly found the tunnel ahead slowly brightened. He hurried his pace. The soft light at the end of the road was particularly clear, like a gentle hand tempted the people. Sha Danan took a deep breath and stepped into the light. Bilu watched Sha Danan's figure disappeared into the tunnel. She startled. Her face darkened. Her father was a high-position and influence person within the Falcon. Since young, she was like a princess, no one dared to disobey her. But now in such hopeless situation, she met a not old, not good-tempered guy from the side of righteous. No way, she will not be mad. However, when Sha Danan was still at Mount Jadon, he was a friendly young man. But for the reason why he always in conflict with Bilu, beside faction difference, he couldn't find any other reason. Surely Bilu knew nothing about it, but she did see Sha Danan against her several times. Her heart was not happy about that. But they both were in hopeless situation, it was not nice to teach this brat, so she snorted, marked this in her heart. But need Bilu to force herself to follow Sha Danan, it was impossible. She did not ponder, and turned, walked into the tunnel at right-hand side. Just couple of steps, Bilu could felt this road was not much different than other tunnel, but the glowing objects on sides of the wall were less in number, caused the tunnel to be darker. Fortunately, this road wasn't long. Bilu soon reached the end, and stepped into a stone chamber. It was a medium-sized stone chamber. One side, there were a lot of shelves. On the other side, there was a pile of trashes. Most were weapons like blade, sword, spear and etc. They were all broken. There was an axe lay on the top. Rust all over. A bit large. It seemed still intact. Looked like the entire axe was made from steel. Bilu had no interest in it, then walked to the shelves. After a quick look, exultation appeared on her face, but then it turned into disappointment. There were tags for each cases on the shelves. Though some characters already turned blurry and some were barely readable, but it was hard to resist the excitement as she read it. They were like 5 Mountains Halberd, Lunar Rope, Men Piercer, and others. Bilu grew up in Falcon. Her father was a genius who had knowledge from past to now. She surely knew those espers were best of the best within Falcon. Why she not happy? But unfortunately there were only tags but no items on the shelves, just left her the disappointment. She sighed, but she still had hope and looked through the shelves, but they were all empty. Perhaps the heaven would not disappoint the one who keep their hopes. She found there was still a small steel box at the last case. But there was no label on the shelf, so she did not know what is in there. Bilu was delighted, carefully picked up the box. It was quite heavy. She shook it softly, but there was no sound came out. Bilu pondered for a moment, then putted the box on the ground. She took a deep breath, taken precautious, then she waved her hand. A white light appeared in the stone chamber. A jade-like flower appeared in air, letted faint fragrance. Bilu's right hand turned over. The little flower that was standing in midair brightened and flew to above the steel box. The white light covered the entire steel box. After that, Bilu carefully opened the small box. As her hand touched the box's cover, she could feel the box did not locked. She flown, the alert in her eyes got higher. She bit her teeth and opened the box with determination. She heard a soft, caw, sound. Before she could see clearly what was in there, a black gas came out. Like she got an electric shock, Bilu fell back. The white flower above the steel box immediately flew down. The black gas was captured by the white light. Could not get out even after several attempts. After a while, the black gas shrunk, and the jade-like white flower turned black, absorbed the black gas. Until the black gas was completely gone, Bilu walked back after a while of waiting. She looked at her little flower. Her father had putted a lot of effort in crafting this esper, heart-ending flower. Now the jade-white petals had turned into dark purple, look a bit evil. Bilu said quietly, "Ancient corpse poison. That elder Blackheart really got a black heart to practice such a thing." She cursed the Falcon's elder Blackheart as looked into the steel box. It was simple inside. There was only one thing inside of the small steel box, a golden, well-intact small bell. Bilu startled. She did not expected the rare poison, ancient corpse poison, was only protecting such small bell. She couldn't find anything strange. Pondered for a while, then she slowly picked up the small bell. Ding dong. A clear ring, like ringing inside of the heart, rang in the stone chamber that had been quiet for 800 years. Bilu held up that bell. It was exquisitely detailed. A thin steel line tied the bell. A slight movement, the clapper softly hit the side, issued ringing sound again. Ding, ding dong. Bilu's girl nature was very pleased by it. The disappointment was also lightened. After another careful examine, there was nothing strange about it. It was like a skillfully made normal bell. But Elder Blackheart kept this so certain careful. This bell must has some uncommon feature, should ask father about when got a chance. Bilu's heart settled, she was more and more pleased by the little bell. She tied it to her waist. As she turned, the bell let it out series of clear rings. It was very pleasanting. Bilu was delighted and nodded. After that, she carefully checked the stone chamber again, but there was nothing. She even checked the pile of trashes. There was nothing worth to look at, not to mention about a way out. After finished, Bilu slowly rose up. It was the time to check on that silly boy's situation. Before she left the stone chamber, she turned her head and looked for the last time. The stone chamber was still messy. But after the pile of trashes was searched through by her, it was in chaos. All kind of weapons lay on the ground. The large axe was also through to the corner. Then, she left the stone chamber. The tunnel on the left-hand side which Sha Danan entered was much longer than the one Bilu entered on the right-hand side. Bilu finally saw light after long while of walk, but still couldn't see the detail. There was no sound of movement coming out. She became a little worried. This place had a lot of strange and cruel stuff, difficult to predict. Is he? Bilu speed up her pace and entered the chamber. Her heart assured as she looked. Sha Danan stood inside of the stone chamber, stared at the stone wall. Bilu relieved, then she looked around in the chamber. This chamber was larger than the one she went, however, it was empty, nothing here. But on the stone wall, there were writing densely carved on the wall. Sha Danan was reading it with his eyebrows frowned together. Bilu frowned, went forth and took a look at it. Delight appeared on her face. On the beginning of the stone-carved writing, there were two large characters. Librews. Librews, this is Librews. Bilu couldn't help but cheered. Sha Danan shocked, then realized Bilu had arrived next to him, but his focus was only her word, Librews. You know what Librews is? Bilu glared at him, said, how would I don't know, this, Librews, is the holy script of our holy faction. From past to now, all holy faction disciples, divine incarnations were all understood from this Librews. Sha Danan shocked again. He was puzzled, then stared at the carved writing on the wall. After a while, he said quietly, no way, impossible. Bilu's face darkened, said, this holy faction's holy script. It is our secret. Didn't you say we are evil heretic? Why look at it. It was like Sha Danan did not hear it. There were only the writing of the wall in his eyes. Librews, Volume 1. The changes of the world begin with mixed together, no difference between good and bad. Sun and moon shine together. World in between, shape begin to form, good and bad begin to form. Reason why the world can last for long time because they did not create it themselves. So they can never die. But the things of the world have their own shape. Men are blinded by illusion, so they created selfishness, preference, desire, karma. Because of those, it created 3 poisons, 3 fear, 3 terror. Cannot last long. Heaven has no judgment, principle has no name. So if achieve selfless, no preference, no desire, no karma, then it is righteous. Holding righteousness, inside is self-nature, world is the center. So everything are within the world, watch by the world. So there is no good or bad. So world is always here, cannot be created. So matter cannot last, then it cannot fulfill the desire. ... Bilu snorted. She wanted to rage, but after a thought, she did not say anything, then looked at the wall. After reading a few sentences, she felt her brain became dizzy. She couldn't help but admired how Sha Danan able to read those boring writings. When she looked at Sha Danan, she was surprised to find his face was filled with pain and perplex. He was trembling with an undescribable strange feeling. No one on this world could match Sha Danan's excitement right now. The Falcon's holy script, Liberus, summary, each words of it pierced into Sha Danan's heart deeply like a knife. The shock it gave him was 100 times greater than the moment he discovered Jadon's Dago's cultivating incarnation and Pazi's Fa and wisdom, incarnation were totally opposite. From these writing, he discovered the different Dagos and Fa incarnations had common. This surprise was still acceptable. But as he read on, his face was getting more pale, because he had discovered a large secret from this Falcon holy script, Liberus. Falcon's magic was cruel and awkward. But it was from Liberus. Dagos require harness nature, Fa focus on understanding the self. And in Liberus, there was Dagos, idea and also Fa's incarnation. Other people like Bilu wouldn't have much thought about it. They will think this is just the divine art left by their ancestor. But to Sha Danan, who knew Dago's and Fua incarnation, this discovery was terrifying. A thought was harassing him. Which one is right? He read on. His face was pale. His mind was excited, with strange and burning curiosity and desire. He could feel there was an important secret before him, but he couldn't touch it, couldn't see it. But it was telling him to run to that destination. But in his heart, there was also fear. Should he do that? Bilu looked at Sha Danan for a while. He was staring at the wall, face weird, seemed like completely forgot she was standing next to him. Fire raged from her heart for no reason. She snorted, but Sha Danan ignored it, did not do anything. Bilu curled her lips. She was very angry, but did not know why. She just doesn't want to teach this person a lesson. She turned around and left while stamping the ground loudly with her feet. Sadly, that silly boy still had no reaction. Bilu left the stone chamber angrily and returned to Limestone's cave, sulk at the skeleton. It used to be nothing, but that brat was just annoying. The more she thought, the more angry she felt. Then she looked at her heart-ending flower, which used to be beautiful but now black all over. She immediately putted all her anger at the black-heart old men. She pointed at the skeleton, said, "You damn old men, died for 800 years and still harm me. Caused my jade flower become. She couldn't continue. The fire in Bilu became larger. Without saying much, she waved. Heart-ending flower, circled the skeleton, then returned. After a second, sharp bones breaking sound issued. With the ka-ka sound, the skeleton had fallen apart. After this, Bilu's anger was settled. She also felt regret, did not know where she had such anger. But when she turned, she was surprised. There were few lines of writing on the wall where the skeleton covered. She quickly went there and looked. There were 4 lines written on the wall. Bell cries, flower dies. Figure turned thin white like frost. Deep love pain, life is pain. Infatuation only for heartless pain. They are from Book of Way and Virtue, Diamond Sutra, Altar Sutra, Book of Jinn, and Book of Changes. Chapter 44, Golden Bell. Bilu startled, then read it closely again. The writing of the 4 lines were meticulous, very different than the Libris in the stone chamber. It appeared to be a work of someone else. From the meaning of those writing, it seemed like a bitter word from an infatuated woman. It was strange of how such thing appeared in Falcon's sacred ground, Blooddrop Cave. She thought for a long time but couldn't find the answer. She shook her head, gave up. When she turned around, she was surprised to see Sha Danan had already came out of the stone chamber silently, standing behind her. His expression was weird, like grief, like surprised, and also like perplexed. His frown tightly, muscle twisted, a little hideous. Bilu was surprised and let out a scream, stepped back. The delicate bell softly shook at her waist, let it out clear and pleasant ding-dong sound, echo in the cave. Sha Danan heard the bell. His body shocked, it was like he suddenly woke up. His emotion was relaxed, but replaced by puzzle. He was pondering at the Libris monument inside the stone chamber, then the fire stick glowed like woke up from sleep. The icy coldness feeling spread through his body. After that, he walked out here subconsciously, until he finally saw the crushed skeleton. Sha Danan looked at the fire stick that tied to his left arm. It was still glowing with soft green light to the fallen skeleton, like feeling sorry for an old friend. Sha Danan did not know why he will have that thought, but looking at that skeleton, there was also sadness in his heart. Although he clearly knew the person who died here must be an important person of Falcon Bloodfurger, probably the elder Blackheart like Bilu said, he felt friendly to that skeleton. The light of the fire stick dimmed, returned to the ugly black. Sha Danan still looked at that skeleton, then, under the eyes of Bilu, he slowly walked to it. Bilu snorted, then stood before him, smiled coldly, "Although I don't like that Blackheart old man, and also different branch. But we are all holy faction's disciple, we all made an oath before Nether Mother and Heaven Vidyaraja. If you want to do anything impolite to his dead body, I will not allow it." Sha Danan looked at her, said, "He is now crushed in pieces, it is all thanks to you." Bilu flushed, but her word did not step back, said determinedly, "I will repent to Mother and Vidyaraja, but I will never let you do anything to it." Sha Danan looked at her, suddenly said, "I have no intent to." Bilu startled, seeing he was calm, no sign of hatred. She felt that Jadon youngster was much different than the righteous people who loaded with justice and virtue. At that moment of hesitation, Sha Danan walked past her. She paused for a moment, then turned and looked at him. Sha Danan walked in front of the skeleton. Long time had passed, the pale bones had glowed with light green color. Due to the heavy hit from Bilu, the bones below the chest were all fallen apart, only the skull remained fine. It landed on top of the bones. The hollow eyes was looking at Sha Danan. Sha Danan shivered. He felt the soul was still in there, looking at him. But he still went to it, and slowly drew the scattered bones into a pile. The chill came out from the bone, he did not feel scare. It was like an old friend. Sha Danan was relieved, like he did what he should do and able to relax. It was weird, but he really had that feeling. He thought, this fire stick was too weird. If I get out alive, I have to ask Master about it. He finished. As he was about to rose up, he noticed at place where skeleton was sitting, because he removed bones, there were writing on there. He let it out a, huh. Bilu was coldly watching Sha Danan doing weird thing. She suddenly heard Sha Danan discovered something. She was curious, so she went there and took a look. There were also several of lines written there. Her heart suffered, hard to return. Regret too late, can't be together. Sinister misunderstand golden bell, whole life always. At the fourth line, the writing became powerless, especially at the third character, always, it was illegible, almost unreadable. At the end, it was just a line, stopped. Appeared the person had colic and no longer able to continue. In the cave, Sha Danan and Bilu were in silent. They could feel there was a sad story within the two writings. A lady with a broken heart and dying man's regret. Sha Danan was lost in thought. Though he never see the unknown lovers, he felt a little sorrow after seeing writings from 1,000 years ago. On the other hand, Bilu frowned tightly. Her eyes stared at the lines, mouth mumbled, sinister misunderstand golden bell, sinister misunderstand golden bell, golden bell. Ah, right, jingling. She thought of something and cheered. Sha Danan was surprised. He asked, what golden bell? Bilu was excited, and filled with joy, said, it is Lady Jingling. You don't know. Sha Danan shook his head confusingly. Bilu snorted, glared at him, then happily said, Lady Jingling is an important figure of our holy faction 1,000 years ago. She was extremely intelligent, highly cultivated, and fully understood our holy script Liberis. She found Lupin alone in the holy faction. She is the top female figure in our faction. Sha Danan lost interest in it. According to her, it seemed like Lady Jingling was a very power person 1,000 years ago in Falcon. But when he heard that she found a branch called Lupin, he knew that old woman wasn't a good person. Bilu seemed really admired that Lady Jingling. Sha Danan snorted, did not reply to her. Then he turned back and fixed the skeleton because they ruined it to read the writing. There was a strange idea appeared in his mind. Seemed like you are also an infatuated person, probably died for that woman. Of course the dead did not answer him. It was just Sha Danan's thinking. He felt more friendly to the skeleton. Bilu was happily talking to herself. Can believe Lady Jingling had love toward that damn elder Blackheart. HMPH, must be Blackheart old man betrayed her. Heartless man, should be killed by thunder. Best to die. Nonsense. Sha Danan suddenly shouted. Bilu was stunned. After a while of staring at him, she said curiously, what did you said? Sha Danan realized it was not right. He was from the righteous, but helped defend a savage falcon killer from 800 years ago. If the Jade masters hear it, it will result in harsh punishment. But he did not know why he would let that out from his mouth. Now he was asked by Bilu, he couldn't find an answer. Bilu looked at him strangely, then she suddenly thought of one thing and forgot about Sha Danan. She picked up the golden bell tied to her waist, very excited, she laughed loudly, ah. Isn't this Lady Jingling's Lupin bell? Then she quickly turned the golden bell and looked inside. There were 3 small characters. Lupin bell. Sha Danan saw Bilu was so happy and almost going get killed by laughter, it appeared she had obtained a powerful esper by chance. He wasn't comfortable. He said coldly, you find the exit yet? There was only the little bell in her eyes. She answered casually, nope. Sha Danan turned his head away, lightly said, then you better die with this golden bell in this cave. Bilu startled, then realized the most important thing now was to look for an exit, hurried asked, you find it? Sha Danan shook his head silently. They look at each other. Bilu took away her smile, said solemnly, then we should find the way first. With death in front of them, Sha Danan quietly nodded. They searched the tunnels and caves together. Closely examined every single wall, every single rift. Sha Danan ignored Bilu's strong objection. He even examined the two statues of Nether Mother and Heaven Vidyaraja, but still couldn't find anything. When they regrouped in front of the crashed skeleton, seeing others' depressed look, their faces dimmed. Bilu said sadly, "Are we going to die here?" Sha Danan lowered his head, couldn't see his face. Bilu was also silent. Suddenly, the shadow of death engulfed the two young life. After a long while, in the silence as two of them did not say anything, Sha Danan suddenly jumped up and went away. Bilu was surprised, said, "What are you doing?" Sha Danan gritted his teeth, said, "I am going to search one more time. There must be a way out. We are not going to die here." In his heart, there was still a sentence he did not say and sounding inside him, "I must see Linger Shiji again, even if I die, I need to bury at Bamboo Peak." Bilu did not do anything, just sat on the platform, watching Sha Danan continue searching with his strong desire of wanting to live. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. Bilu could not remember how many times Sha Danan had went through the stone chambers and caves. Each time he returned with nothing. But he still did not give up. Maybe it was his stubborn nature, or maybe it was his strong desire to live. He kept continuing searching for a way out, continuing. Until his feet began to shake, until he ran out of strength, until he went next to Bilu, swung to the side and fell. He landed heavily on the ground and passed out. Bilu gazed at him, hesitated for a moment, then walked to him and turned his body over. It seemed nothing serious, just overexhausted plus hunger and thirst, so he fainted. She gave a sigh of relief. Then she startled, asked herself in deep of her heart, "Why I relieve, he is fine, why I need to sigh?" That idea flashed through her mind like lightning. She deeply looked at him. On that young man's face, it was languish due to injuries and hunger. His lips were cracked from dryness. Bilu softly putted him down, gazed at him for a moment, then said, "Since we are meant to die here together, I don't want to be alone too soon. It is better to have someone with me." She went outside and back to the cave entrance to take some water from the pond. Then she took some food and tried to feed Sha Danan. Perhaps because Sha Danan was unconscious, he could not eat any food, only drank some water from Bilu's water bag. He still hadn't wake up. After a day of work, Bilu was also tired. Sha Danan's situation seemed fine. She closed her eyes and fell asleep. After a while of sleep, Bilu woke up. Her first action was immediately looked at Sha Danan. Sha Danan was peacefully laying there, not moving. He was sleeping. She relieved, couldn't help but scolded quietly, "Why sleep like a dead pig?" As she spoke, she herself smiled. It was like watching this young man. Her mood got better, she even forgot the death in near future. She suddenly realized that although Sha Danan was sleeping, his face flushed with redness. A bit not right. She quickly reached out her hand and checked. His forehead was burning hot. She was surprised, did not expected Sha Danan to have a high fever at this critical moment. Normally, cultivators had strong body, hardly get ill for hundreds years. But Sha Danan was heavily injured for the past several days, mentally and physically exhausted, the body was damaged badly. At the end, without caring his body condition, he used all his strength to search for an exit in Blooddrop Cave. After passed out, he had a high fever. This sickness was not light. After long time his fever did not get lower. In the cave, Bilu did not know how many days. Bilu couldn't do anything. She could only help him get some water to lower his temperature, but it was useless. Later, Sha Danan's fever was still not gone. He began to say random stuff. Bilu was extremely worried and anxious. When she thought of she need to wait for death in this cave alone, she was terrified. So even something Sha Danan said, even a gasp, it was like heaven compared to the horrible days later. No matter what Bilu tried, she could only bring some water. In the cave, there was no doctor or herbs. How could she help? Sha Danan's sickness was getting worse day by day. The random words was getting more frequent. That day, Bilu stayed anxiously next to the unconscious Sha Danan. He suddenly turned over and curled up, cried, "Ghost, ghost, ghost." Then suddenly said angrily, "You killed my parents, killed all villagers, I am going to kill you." Bilu was surprised, quickly held him, kept saying, "No, no. There is no ghost here." Perhaps her words worked. Sha Danan calmed down. The fear on his face was also settled, but then it changed to a sad expression. His eyes were close, said quietly, Shiji, Shiji, don't abandon me, I want to, don't abandon me." Bilu startled, Sorrow passed through her heart, but courage came out from her. She gently said, "Never. Your Shiji is here, she won't abandon you." Smile immediately appeared on Sha Danan's face. It was like this was Sha Danan's happiest moment. His mouth kept mumbling, "Shiji, Shiji." Bilu saw his peace within the suffer face, though his pain sliced through her heart. The girl who he cares so much about, the Shiji that he still remember even when he is unconscious, how is she like? She remembered that day under Forsaken Abyss, the Jadon female disciple with blue sword that Sha Danan tried hard to protect. Can it be her? Bilu frowned. She could remember that lady had an extremely beautiful face. Even saying she could enchant the entire country was not too over. No wonder Sha Danan would fall for her. But no matter how smart Bilu is, she would not know the one that Sha Danan obsessed with was Hidi, who was still at Mount Jade on Bamboo Peak. For the following days, Bilu always stayed next to Sha Danan. She learned more about Sha Danan from his sleep talk. She found out he born in the place called Grass Temple Village. She found out that village's tragic event. She also found out the lady he obsessed with was his Shiji at Bamboo Peak, but she could not be sure is that Shiji the one who held blue sword that day. Only, from these days of taking care of Sha Danan, Bilu could feel she had a strange feeling toward that young man. Every day gazed at his depressed face seemed to be the only way to spend the boring time. She often stared at him like that for long time. But she never thought of, at the stone chamber next to him, the Falcon's holy script, Liberus. Sometime, when Sha Danan settled, she would slowly walk to the writing left by Lady Jingling. Gazed at it for a moment, then softly said, "Lady, you had left a warning that, all men of this world are heartless. But you can see, this Sha Danan is very infatuated." But there was no one answered her in this empty cave. Only when she turned, the little golden bell let it out a clear pleasing ring. At her side, in this cave, softly echo, seemed like saying something. Like there was a pair of gentle eyes, and a lingering soul, watching them, surrounding them. Chapter 45 Sadness. After these series of sleep talking, maybe Sha Danan's body was strong, or maybe Bilu's comfort had effect, the continuing high fever was slowly lowered. Sha Danan also slowly regaining consciousness. Because the sickness was not light, he was still laying in rest. That day, Bilu got nothing to do and walked around in the cave, but at the end, she still ended up in front of Lady Jingling's writing. After reading it, she sighed. Sha Danan sat on the side, asked, "What are you sighing for?" Bilu snorted, said, "I am sighing for Lady. With her intellect and beauty, she was betrayed by a stinky man like you, suffer for entire life. It is really not worth it." Sha Danan couldn't find anything to reply. Bilu read through these writing again, then she suddenly issued a, "Huh." She found a weird thing. The last character, E, on the last sentence, the "a pound" part was deeply sunk in, very different than other characters. She rolled her eyes, then immediately realized and picked up the Lupin bell from her waist to compare. The size was exactly same. She let it out a cheer. Sha Danan asked curiously from behind, "What it is?" Bilu turned around and smiled, "Perhaps it may save us." Sha Danan was surprised, immediately filled with energy, said happily, "Really?" Bilu inserted the bell in. There was no reaction. She turned it left and right. After a moment, "Ka-ka," was sounded in the cave. The stone wall was shaking. Bilu was surprised, took out the golden bell and stepped back. After a boom, the smooth layer of stone wall fell off, showed the interlayer. There were writing like the library's room. Sha Danan was first delighted, but then after a look at the stone wall, his face dimmed. Seemed like this trap was for hiding Lady Jingling's writing. There was no exit. Now he was very disappointed. But Bilu was staring at the writing on the wall. This was left by Lady Jingling, and secured so securely. It must be uncommon thing. After long while, there was no happiness or sadness, but an exclaimed look, said quietly, "So this is infatuation." Sha Danan was impatient. He took a look at it. The first few sentences were, "Spirit of Nether, deities of heaven, use my body as sacrifice. For eternity, fall into Yama. Because of love, never regret. ... He immediately concluded these were the evil's vicious curse. But Bilu was quite happy on the other hand. He snorted, said, "Are there hint for where the exit is?" Bilu startled, said, "No." Sha Danan said lightly, "What's the use for you to learn it then?" Bilu was silent, and said after a while, do you know that infatuation's incantation was passed down from our holy faction since ancient time, but no one ever used it? Sha Danan was curious, asked, what? Bilu sighed, said, that incantation was invented out of the less than greater than by an intelligent female master, but it could only be practiced by female. It require all blood from a woman, then transfer it into a powerful spell. Before she finished, Sha Danan already cut it in, his eyes were filled with disdain, said, then name it, bloody jinx, call it infatuation as just evil way of making it sound good. Bilu's face changed, but then startled, and said quietly, you are right. That is why even Lady Jingling did not use it in the end. Sha Danan ignored her. The two were staying in there for several days again. Sha Danan went to read the less than greater than as pastime while Bilu often stared at the writing of the less than greater than on the wall. Within less than greater than's first volume, there was no actual cultivation practice. They were all deep writing and be called the summary. But Sha Danan knew both Fuwa and Dago's cultivation, he could manage to understand those writing. But it was only understood it. For the Fuwa and Dago's combined stage of what less than greater than stated, Sha Danan still couldn't get what it mean. Is it saying that caste, pure essence, and fa and wisdom, at the same time? Even though he knew there was little chance of survive, there was still a little desire in his heart. Sha Danan quickly followed the way of practice that less than greater than had stated. But to channel both incantation at once, it was not easy. After a moment, his blood began to boil, so he was forced to stop. For the following days, there was no improvement. But then, there was a more difficult question laying before them, out of food. Though cultivators can go anywhere they want, but they are still mortal bodies. Legend said the high cultivation elders can go without eating and drinking, but no one ever saw that. After entered this cave, Sha Danan lost all his food already. Although fortunately there was water in the cave, only Bilu had food. How is that enough? Even they had tried to save the food, they soon finished them all. Then after a while in the cave, probably only 2 days, Sha Danan and Bilu were staring blankly at the empty food bag. Alas! Bilu sat on the platform, next to her it was the skeleton, but she did not seem to be uncomfortable. Seemed like Falcon was really different than normal human. But now, her face was still depressed. Sha Danan's illness had recovered quickly. The fever was almost gone. Beside the body was a little out of strength, there was no other thing. At this moment he heard Bilu sighed, he turned and looked at that Falcon lady. In his eyes, it was a girl in watery green dress sitting on the platform. Her feet were swinging in the air, and the lupin bell on her waist was ringing with, ding ding dong dong. If not because he knew who she is, Sha Danan would probably think she was a naive little girl. Bilu looked much more depressed than when Sha Danan first met her. Because she is a girl, every day she would go to the little waterfall and have a wash, so her look was neat without any dirt. But through these days, she was clearly got skinny. Thought about that, it reminded Sha Danan that his master and Shishongs had taught him all falcons were selfish and cruel. But now in this cave and hopeless situation, why, that falcon girl would give him the remaining half of the food. Sha Danan was in his own world thinking about that, did not notice Bilu had looked at him. Seeing Sha Danan was staring at herself blankly, she blushed, scolded him, what are you looking at? Sha Danan was surprised, then quickly turned his head away, said, nothing. Bilu stood behind him, did not scolded him fiercely like he had imagined. After long time, it was a sigh, said, we are stuck in this cave, not far away from death, you don't need to care about so much. Sha Danan startled, slowly turned around, looked at Bilu. On her thin but still beautiful face, there was a helpless smile. He couldn't help but said, when I was sick, you don't need to give me most of the food, then you can live for few days longer, maybe you can. Maybe what? Bilu suddenly stopped him. Sha Danan startled, then shook his head, said quietly, maybe you can be saved. Bilu shook her head, showed a smile, said, I don't want to die, but I am more not willing to die in a lonely cave, facing a skeleton and a decaying corpse and wait for death. If it is like that, I probably going to go mad before people rescue me. Sha Danan couldn't help but shivered when he heard how Bilu described it. It was really not a place for living. Bilu looked at him, said lightly, what, you scared too? Sha Danan immediately straightened his back, said loudly, no way. Bilu showed a small smile, a little of gentle in her eyes. She said softly, promise me one thing, okay? Sha Danan frowned, asked, what? Bilu smiled faintly, said, we had finished all of our food. Except for water, there is nothing to eat. Within 7 days, we are going to starve to death. Sha Danan was silent. Bilu was calm, but the next thing she said would turn Sha Danan pale like he met a ghost. After few days, if you see me unable to keep on, then kill me first. Sha Danan's mouth wide opened, pointed his finger at her and couldn't say anything. But he did not expect Bilu would said such awkward, surprising words so calmly. After I die, my body will still hear. If you want to survive, then eat my flesh, probably able to live for period of time. Sha Danan almost fell on the floor. After long while, he pulled himself back together from this great shock. He told himself, the falcons are really animals, they can do such thing. But looking at Bilu's eyes, they were all calm. His heart was chilled, and stepped back, his hand was shaking, pointing at Bilu, said, what did you said? Bilu looked at him, the gentleness in her eyes was getting heavier. But in Sha Danan's eyes, it was more deadly than all poisons in this world. Don't you want to go back to Mount Jade on Bamboo Peak to see your Linger Shiji? There are still several of your allies in this cave of fangs, they must be searching for you. If you can live longer, their chance of finding you is greater, isn't it? Bilu lowered her head, but her voice was still calm. But at this moment, how would Sha Danan care about Bilu's tone? He did not even notice how Bilu knew about HIDI. He only pointed at Bilu, said angrily, you tell me to eat, you falcon heretics are so insane. Shameless, disgusting, you. He was getting more angry but his tongue did not work properly. He said, and, you, for a long time, but still couldn't say anything. His reaction was within Bilu's prediction, so she was not angry or ridicule. She only watched him, waited until Sha Danan regained his breath. She slowly said, eat me or not, it is your choice, but you must kill me first. Again, the fire in Sha Danan burned again. Do you think I will make evil deal with the you falcon? You gave me the food, I can repay you with my body. If you want to get me into this, never. Bilu slowly shook her head, said, no, I am scared. Sha Danan continued his normal answer. Lie, I will not fall into your trick. What did you say? It was like at this life and death moment, Bilu's heart had some unusual change. It was like she had fallen into some kind of memory. There was terror appeared on her face that Sha Danan never saw before. Then, she shook her head, like she wanted to shake away some thought. Do you know how it is feel to wait for death alone? She said quietly. Sha Danan startled. He noticed she seemed hiding some secret. He was curious and asked, what? The mucles next to Bilu's eyes twitched. At this dire time, facing the only young man who was next to her before death, she could not control her feeling, even her voice was blurry and hollow. When I was 6, Mom brought me to Fox Hill 6 Fox's Cave, to visit my grandma. But your righteous attacked us, and the monk Pufin of Sky Song used Pagoda Alms Bowl, destroyed the entire 6 Fox's Cave, buried me, mother, and grandma alive. Sha Danan suddenly shivered. He had a bad feeling about this. There was a chill coming from his heart and spread through his body. Bilu had completely entered the painful memory. Her eyes stared forward hollowly, just like her voice was calm and hollow, with the deepest pain. That time, I cried loudly from the terror. I was very scared. This was a small cave, because there was several large stones to support it, we lived. But grandma's injury was too serious, soon she died. Mother and I cried hard in the darkness, then buried grandma. We were buried very deep in the earth, beside the few water dropped from the rocks, it was all hard, cold rocks. I was really scared, but mother kept telling me, Lil Yao, don't be afraid, Dad will save us. Sha Danan held his breath, listened carefully, with undescribable awkwardness and fear. He could feel there is something about to happen. But, it was always darkness. Dad did not come. I was very scared in the dark cave. And I was hungry, kept on crying. I can still remember my mother sighed sadly next to me. She cuddled me tightly, kept telling me, Lil Yao don't be afraid, Lil Yao don't be afraid, mother will not let anything happen to you. Your dad will come save us. Bilu became more and more pale, but she still continued, but dad still did not come and I was already starving, kept on crying to mother for food. Mother searched through the cave over and over again, but still couldn't find anything. At the end, I was so hungry that I did not have the strength to cry, only laying at my mother. Suddenly one day, mother found a piece of flesh. Sha Danan could see Bilu shivered as she said this. I was too hungry, did not care about much, so I ate it, then slept comfortably. It seemed like at that moment, Mother smiled in the darkness. So Mother gave me a piece of flesh every once in a while. That is how I lived. But Mother's voice was getting weaker and weaker. Until one day, when I called her, she did not answer. After that, I was in the darkness, waiting for death alone. Bilu slowly turned, looked at Sha Danan. Sha Danan was caught by her eyes, he could feel the chill. Do you know how it feels when waiting for death alone? Do you know the smell of the decaying corpse of Mother? Do you know how is the fear of forever living in the place that you can never see in the darkness? Each time she asked, Sha Danan shivered. Bilu was silent. Sha Danan did not dare to take a breath. Finally, he was like awakened from a dream, but it was not totally awakened. She continued. Finally one day, the cave entrance was becoming larger. I heard Dad calling me and Mother's names. Then, I saw Dad jump down in front of me. He did not see me at first, but my mother. I only looked at above and forgot to look at Mother when there was finally light. When I recalled it, Dad already blocked my sight. I could not see Mother's corpse. But I could clearly see Dad was shocked. It was like he had turned to stone. Then, Uncle Mary Coon, Uncle White Tiger, and Uncle Sinwu, they were all stunned and rooted on the ground. I suddenly felt scared, even more than when I was waiting for death in the darkness. I quietly called, Dad. The three uncles lined up behind him, covered Mother's dead body. I still couldn't see Mother. I whispered, Dad, how is Mother? Sha Danan could see it clearly. Each word Bilu said had made him shivered. It was like that little girl was actually before them. Dad did not say anything. But his look was terrifying. Although I was still young, I knew, that at that time, he was really wanted to kill me, wanted to kill his own daughter. But at the end, he did not. He saved me, carried me away from this dark cave. Before I left, I peered from Dad's shoulder and saw Mother's dead body was already buried by the three uncles. Only an arm showed up, but for some reason that arm. Bilu suddenly became quiet. Sha Danan was surprised and looked at her. Bilu was completely pale. Her eyes were closed. Then she fell, seemed like passed out. Sha Danan immediately caught her. She was very cold, almost does not seem like a living person. His illness was just recovered. His body was weak, so he spent a lot of effort to lay Bilu down on the platform. Watching her pale face, Sha Danan discovered he was already sweating all over his body. That night actually did not know is it night or morning. Sha Danan's instinct thought it was night. Bilu was unconscious, but she kept crying, Mother, Dad, and things like that. Their position had changed. This time was Sha Danan's turn to take care of Bilu. But it seemed like there was an extremely painful past in deep of Bilu's heart. When she was unconscious, she kept screaming. Sha Danan could not do anything about it. At the end, Bilu swung her arm and accidentally grabbed Sha Danan's shoulder and cuddled on him, like she got something to rely on. Then she calmed down and quietly slept. But her hands grabbed tightly on Sha Danan's clothes. Her nails dig deeply into Sha Danan's skin, caused Sha Danan's face twisted in pain. But as he watched Bilus's pale face, he could not leave her, so he bared it, letted her to cuddled on him, sleep peacefully. Esper Anon's Secret, Chapter 46 Escape. The Bilu's past was a very deep wound for her. She had buried it in her heart over the years. At this crisis, she recalled the memory and her mind was overwhelmed. And additionally, the food was getting less and less these days, her body was weakened, therefore she passed out. Sha Danan was watching the falcon girl who was still grabbed him tightly. He smiled bitterly. Not long ago, he thought himself was a sick person who just came out from visiting the hell. Unexpectedly, this time was Bilu's turn to get sick. The two collapsed one after another. It was really hard not to die in here. After a while, Sha Danan was getting sleepy, but he forced himself to straighten up because Bilu was still laying in his arms. Seeing her depressed and painful look, Sha Danan could not have the heart to leave her. But sitting like this was not easy. He sat on the platform, one leg hanging in the air while one leg on the ground. His back was slanted and remained straight, but there was nothing behind him for him to lie on. Just after a moment, his body was aching, especially at the place where Bilu grabbed him. Her fingers were powerful, even when she was sleeping, the strength remained strong. It was pain into the marrow. But Sha Danan was persevere person and bared it. If it was someone else, they probably jumped away already. Even with that, this suffer was not easy. Sha Danan was complaining in his heart. But at the end, he did not left. As time passed, the tiredness had caught up to him, then began to fall asleep within the numbed pain and ache. Ah! Sha Danan woke up and stretched, then he could feel his entire body was aching. When he sighed, he discovered himself was lying on the platform, and Bilu was gone. Sha Danan was surprised. He rose up and looked around, but still couldn't see Bilu. The entire cave was empty and there was no sound. Chill rose in Sha Danan's heart. It was like he was stunned in the graveyard. He frowned, then began to search for Bilu. He had searched the library's stone chamber and also the treasure room, there was no sign of Bilu. Sha Danan thought for a moment, then went outside. After a while, he saw Bilu in the stone chamber that worshipped the two Falcon's evil gods. Before the kind-looking Nether Mother and the hideous-looking Heaven Vidyaraja, Bilu kneeled on the ground. Her shoulders were shaking, although she was trying to hold it, but she was still letting quiet sobs. She was crying. Sha Danan was stunned. He could not expect the Falcon girl who was always tough and competitive would secretly crying in front of the statues. He was rooted on the ground, could not think of what to do. But at the end he walked to her slowly, said uncertainly, you, what is it in you, stopping crying? If he remained quiet it would be better, but as she heard his words, the sadness that was trying hard to bear had bursted out. Her voice raised. The sobbing became very loud. Crystal-like tears were also hanging on her face. Sha Danan was stunned, but he was still young, how could he understand girl's mind? He was immediately threw into flurry, it was like he made Bilu to cry, even his words had turned stammered, you don't be like that. No, I mean I was saying that I. Bilu watched Sha Danan fussed around with her misty eyes. She shook her head, but the sadness couldn't be bared. The tears that had held for 10 years were all bursted today. It was me who killed mother. The girl who fell into the painful past, said sadly with wretchedness. Sha Danan immediately shook his head, watching her weak and lonely figure, his heart was like seeing the lonely figure of himself many years ago. No. He stepped forth, said quietly, gently, you mother care about you the most. That time you was still small, didn't know anything, how will you able to harm anyone? Bilu choked. But dad always hate me, I know he senior must want me to die, he blame me for mother's death. Sha Danan said quietly, no, don't think too much. Did he not blame you, did he came saved you, for these years, did he treated you badly? Bilu's body shook, her face became more pale. From where Sha Danan looked at her, it was like pear blossom in the rain, the scenery of sadness was soul-touching. She lifted her head. Behind the tear, the eyesight of her, Sha Danan did not have the courage to look at it directly. He moved his eyes away. After a long while, you are very nice. Suddenly, she said quietly. In the deep of Sha Danan's heart, his heart jumped, then he forced himself to calm down. He smiled. No, I see we are going to die in here together soon, so comfort you before death, it was nothing. Bilu stopped crying and wiped away the tears from her eyes, sighed, yeah, we are going to die together. Then she thought of something, asked Sha Danan, you and I die in here, do your heart ever regret? Sha Danan was startled, countless of scenes flashed in his memory. It was like at this moment, he was back to Mount Jade on Bamboo Peak, of course I regret. He said quietly. Bilu heard it, her face dimmed, said, HMPH, in the holy faction, there are many of them who wish to be able to die with me, but you are not taking a proper measure of yourself. Rage rose in Sha Danan's heart, but when he looked at Bilu, the rage was disappeared. He sighed, shook his head, maybe. If only I can be buried on Bamboo Peak, then I will have no regret when I die. Bilu's face darkened, stared at him. After a while of silence, she suddenly spoke, you are doing this for your Linger Shiji, right? Sha Danan jumped, pointed at her, surprised and asked, how do you know? Bilu turned her head away, said, you said this while you were asleep talking at the time you fell ill. Sha Danan was stunned. When he was about to scold her, he remembered they are about to die here. After that, he will never able to see Shiji, even if he becomes a nether spirit after he die, he will still not able to see Bamboo Peak's sceneries. But, will Shiji remember me? When he thought of that, at that moment, his heart was dead. He sighed and hard to pull himself out of the grief, then turned around and left the cave. Bilu on the other hand, was staring his back blankly. After a while, she slowly turned around, looked at the two statues, and bowed to it. Mother Goddess, may you pity the world, protect him. Vidyaraja Majesty, wish you use your sky-piercing power, save. Then she voice stopped. She lie on the ground, motionless. The surrounding was silent, but in her mind, there was a raging tide of ocean, and a beam of light shining among the waves. But it could only appear faintly. She tried to catch it, remember it. She slowly lifted her head, and carefully looked at Heaven Vidyaraja again and again. There was an idea in her heart shouted, not right, this statue is missing something. She looked at it over and over again, and held her breath. Finally, her eyes landed on that empty right hand of the statue. She jumped up, happily called, Genesis Axe, right, where is Genesis Axe? In Falcon legend, Nether Mother was the spirit that watch over the life, and Heaven Vidyaraja was the hideous god that created the world and handling judgment, which was differ from Pengu legend. Heaven Vidyaraja held Genesis Axe, so it is a must to have an axe along with the statue. But the statue before her, its right hand was empty. Bilu knew in Falcon, Heaven Vidyaraja was one of the greatest gods, no one will dare to disrespect it. The one that built this blood drop cave was Bloodfurger, which was also Falcon. There must be a reason for the axe to be missing. Shah Danan returned to the limestone cave and sat on the platform silently. When he was thinking of Bamboo Peak, Bilu rushed with happiness on her face. Seeing he was sitting there, she called, if you wish to live, then hurry come with me. What? Shah Danan was surprised. Bilu rushed into the treasure room like wind. He hesitated for a moment, but he couldn't resist his desire to live and followed her. Then he heard Bilu cheered. Bilu was struggled to drag out a large steel axe from the pile of trashes. She looked extremely difficult, it seemed like this axe was quite heavy. Shah Danan ran to her and helped her to hold the large axe. That axe was really heavy. Even two of them together it was still difficult. He asked, what are you doing? Bilu didn't say much. She said directly, if you want to live, then help me bring this axe to the statues. Shah Danan gasped, asked with surprise, what are you doing? Bilu did not say anything and began to drag the axe. Her body was weakened after few steps and breathing heavily. Shah Danan shook his head, sighed, but still went to her. The two together, with tremendous effort, they finally dragged the axe to the stone chamber where the statues are. Then Shah Danan rolled his eyes, unwillingly to hear Bilu said that they need to locate this thing into the evil god's hand. Shah Danan was very suspicious of it. Now he had heard that he need to do thing for the Falcon's evil god, he lost the will to do it. But Bilu was even more stubborn than him. Seeing her trying hard alone, his heart softened and thought that it was all right to grant her that wish before death. Then he stepped forth and helped. That axe was very large, and now to actually carry it, its weight was incredibly heavy, plus they had no food for long time. At the end, they finished the impossible mission and located the axe into Heaven Vidyaraja's right hand, and then Shah Danan sat on the ground, breathing heavily. Gasp, if you can't find the exit, gasp, originally we could live for 3 days, now we only get 3 hours left. Bilu was also gasping for air, but the excitement in her eyes could not be hidden. After a little resting, Bilu returned to the statue, carefully observed for a while. After the large axe was added into Vidyaraja's statue's hand, it looked much more mighty. Then she respectfully saluted to the Heaven Vidyaraja. She said, Vidyaraja Majesty, please forgive disciples' rude action. Then, she grabbed the large axe and shook it. Nothing happened. That large axe was putted into the hand by her. If there is something, it should already happened. Shah Danan sat on the ground, shook his head as he watched Bilu's strange action. Bilu frowned, murmured, why is that, it should be here. She was in hurry and putted more power into her arm, so as she moved the large axe, Heaven Vidyaraja's right hand was also moved. Suddenly, there was a heavy noise sounded in the cave. Shah Danan hopped up. Bilu was beamed with joy. They looked at each other. Shah Danan ran to Bilu and helped raise the giant axe. Heaven Vidyaraja's lowered right hand was raised to midair. After a moment, a large ear-deafening boom roared in the cave. They were surprised, it was like thunder roaring next to their ears. They quickly covered their ears. After a while, their ears were still ringing, but behind the statues, the giant, hard stone wall slitted to the sides, showed a path. There was a stone stair went upward into the unknown darkness. Then, the stone chamber was fiercely shaking. The rocks were falling from the above. They did not say anything and ran into the stone stair at the same time, entered the darkness. Actually at 800 years ago, when the Falcon Bloodfurger built this blood drop cave, they had considered if they are weakened and was attacked by enemy, therefore they built a path secretly inside the mountain. If enemy attack, they will use this route to escape. After a moment the entire blood drop cave will be collapsed, bury the enemy and countless secrets of Bloodfurger together. Sha Danan and Bilu ran as fast as they could. The loud noise kept on coming from behind, stones scattered in the air. If they run a little slow, they will probably die. They needed to bring out their last bit of strength and ran forward. There was only darkness in front of them. In this narrow and dark secret passage, they couldn't count how many times they had fell on the ground, hit it on the wall. They could only hear the loud noising roaring and the stones scattering. It was like the entire Kongsang mountain was in rage. But finally, with the desire to survive, they saw the light appeared in front of them. The secret passage's entrance located under a cliff west of the mountain. This place was heavily wooded and very well hidden, no wonder no one ever found it for 800 years. Probably even the Bloodfurger today did not even know about this place. Sha Danan and Bilu stumblingly rushed out, and almost at the moment when they landed on the ground, after a loud boom noise, thousands pounds of stones fell, stirred up a cloud of dust and blocked the entrance tightly. From now on, no one will ever able to see the secret inside the mountain. Lying on the ground, Sha Danan was breathing heavily. His hand clutched the wetting green grass. This experience of running from the edge of death was really losing one's breath. After a while, his mind slowly relaxed. He lifted his head, looked to the side and saw Bilu was next to her. Her white face had thin layer of dust, like she had felt Sha Danan's eyes. She turned and looked at him. The happiness after escape from the misfortune slowly appeared on their faces. Bilu's lips moved, there was water flowing in her eyes, misty but like crystal. She cheered with sob. A feeling of escaped from infinitely large amount of pressure and not think of other things. Only feel that the sky is very blue, mountain is very high. Waves of soft wind, green covered mountain, green figure whirling, the trees spring, everywhere of this world was filled with soul-touching beautiful sceneries. We lived, she cheered to the green mountain and blue sky. Sha Danan laughed loudly next to her, watching her opened her arms and shined the most beautiful smile of the world. Within the flicking sound, fire swallowed the firewood, raised wave of soft smoke. Bilu sat next to the fire, watching Sha Danan cleaned a hare that he just caught, and roasted it above the fire with a thick tree branch stick through. As the fire grilling, the hare gradually turned to golden yellow. The grease formed into drops and fell off. In the woods, such delicious smell spreaded far and wide in the air. Since Bilu was already hungry due to the cave, she couldn't hold her slobbering. But Sha Danan was not in a hurry. He took a look, then putted his hand on his waist as usual. He suddenly startled, then beamed with joy. Bilu asked, "What?" Sha Danan happily took out a small bag at his waist, smiled, "Cannot imagine that the foods are lost, but this thing is still here. I did not notice it on the past few days." Bilu looked toward at the small bag. Sha Danan carefully opened the bag. There were several little bottles. She was curious and took them out, smelled them. She was stunned, then looked at Sha Danan, almost couldn't say anything. These are salt and condiment." Sha Danan was filled with smile, said, "Yeah, I bought those with me when I left the mountain. Fear if we need to camp it outside, I can make something good. I cannot expect they really become useful today." Bilu looked at Sha Danan from top to bottom. She couldn't say anything, but watching him carefully shed some of the spice or salt on the rabbit, then slowly turned the rabbit with stick. The delicious smell in the air was getting heavier. She had never seen a righteous cultivator would keep condiment with them. He looked more like a cook rather than a famous faction's disciple. After a while, Sha Danan leaned forth and took a sniff, then happily said, "Okay, you can eat now." Bilu was already getting impatient from the waiting. The delicious smell was like entered into every pores of her body. After a sniff, her body was like floating and became very light. As for her mouth, there was not much need to describe it. If not because she was careful in hiding it, probably even the rumbling of her stomach could be heard by that kid. When she heard Sha Danan finally gave mercy and said it was done, with the golden, delicious rabbit in front of her, her saliva almost fell out. She stretched out her hand, but she was uncareful. When she touched it, she screamed, "Ah!" then took her hand back. She was burned. Sha Danan smelled. "Don't rush." Then he moved away the fire with the tree stick, then waited for the grease to fall off. When the rabbit got cooler, he carefully teared off a rabbit leg, handed to Bilu, smiled, "Here." Bilu immediately held out her hand and took the rabbit. Just when she opened her mouth, she saw Sha Danan's kind smile. The sunlight shined through the leaf and landed on his face. It was hearty. Her face suddenly blushed, turned away with her back facing Sha Danan, then she began to eat. Sha Danan startled, but did not mind it. He was also starving, so he teared off another rabbit leg and munched on it. When he was eating, he suddenly saw Bilu already turned back and looked at him. He asked, "What is it, right, is it delicious?" There was a faint redness on Bilu's face. The soft wind from the woods gently fluttered her soft hair, touched her white face. "Very delicious, Sha Danan. What is it?" "Bilu, I finished." Her face had a little bit of a little bit of embarrassment. Sha Danan's mouth opened, he was enchanted. Bilu lowered her head, there was a sudden silence between them. After a while, Sha Danan suddenly woke up. His forehead was sweating, his tongue was tied, unable to make a sentence. I didn't see, no, you see no, here. Then he closed his eyes and handed his rabbit leg to her, but he did not have the courage to open his eyes. But after a long while, Bilu still made no movement. Sha Danan summoned his courage, slowly opened his eyes. Bilu was looking at him, her face was like smiling, her eyes were gentle. With a gentle and lovely expressions, she said quietly, with a little bit of smile, "Are you giving me this to eat?" Sha Danan was confused and looked toward to his hand. His face immediately turned all red, and there was no place for him to hide his face. His right hand had handed Bilu his half-eaten rabbit leg. The rest of the rabbit was in his left hand next to him. No. Sha Danan was very embarrassed. He swiftly took back his rabbit leg, then embarrassingly handed her the rest of the rabbit. His mouth was murmuring, I know. Bilu took the rabbit, then teared off part of the flesh, put it into her mouth, softly chewing, "Very delicious, the most delicious thing I have ever eaten in my life is this rabbit you roasted." Sha Danan's heart jumped. Bilu's pretty and graceful face said with smile and solemn. His heart swung, then not look at her anymore and put all his attention on eating the remaining rabbit leg. That rabbit was soon eliminated completely by the two hungry people. Eating the first meal since the day of the cave was really a great thing. Bilu found a stream. The two took a wash, then they began to get tired. Their minds were very depressed in the cave and now they had got away from the edge of the death, they could finally relax, and the tyrants also caught up to them. Bilu was first to collapse and slept on a small green lawn next to the stream. Sha Danan also felt exhausted and lay next to her. The sunlight gently landed on them. Sha Danan turned and looked at Bilu. After washing, although Bilu's hair was still a little messy, but her face had returned back to thin snowy white. She was closing her eyes, quietly lying there. Soft wind came and fluttered her hair. Under the sunlight, it beamed with gentle glow. Suddenly, when Bilu was dreaming, it was like she noticed something. She raised her eyebrows, and her right hand grabbed Sha Danan and lay on his side like it was her habit. On her lips, there was a soft smile. Then she slept peacefully. Sha Danan startled, but looking at Bilu's languished but still beautiful face, he did not have the courage to remove her hand, so he lay still there. Slowly, the sleepiness caught up to him. He closed his eyes and forgot about it like it was very normal, then he fell asleep. The wind of the woods was still softly whistling, whistled past the branches, whistled past the leaf, whistled past the quietly flowing stream and raised small ripple, finally blew across the two young people. Chapter 47, Scholar. Sha Danan woke up, but the sky was dark. They had probably slept for 5 or 6 hours. In China, 1 hour actually equal to 2 hours, there are total 12 hours, each hours was named after the 12 zodiacs. Bilu still hadn't wake up. Both of her hands grabbed his clothes tightly. She looked really like a terrified little child, who could imagine she is actually an important person within Falcon. Sha Danan putted his hand under his head, listening the woods danced in the wind. Suddenly, he thought of Mount Jade on Bamboo Peak. Does the bamboo forest also make this kind of sound, too? I was missing in the Cave of Fangs these days. This news probably already brought back to Bamboo Peak. Will Ling Shiji feel sad after she hear this? But, if I suddenly appear before her, surely she will be happy, and surely, she will hold my hand, very excited, laughed, "Stinking brat, I know you cannot die so easily." On his face, under the dark night, a smile appeared. His eyes were so bright even in the night. But he did not notice, next to him, there was another pair of bright eyes, watching him. It was morning again, the pleasant song of the birds ringing among the mountains. Sha Danan went to the stream, then used his hands held up the water and splash on his face. The coolness feeling passed through into his heart. He took a look at his left arm, took off the bandage, the broken bone was almost recovered. He happily putted the fire stick at his waist, then exercised the left arm, there was no problem. "Your arm recovered?" Bilu came out from behind, looked at him, then kneeled down and washed her face with the water. Yeah, Sha Danan happily said, there is no problem, it is not swell nor hurt. Bilu used her sleeve to softly wipe away the water from her face, said, but don't do too much, it is better to rest for longer period. Understood, Sha Danan answered casually, then he turned to Bilu, hesitated for a moment, then said, Miss Bilu, we are fortunate enough to escape from the mountain alive, you and I may called friend, but we are still walking on different paths, we shall part here today. Bilu kneeled next to the water, did not rise up, but her body shook. Sha Danan could not see her face. After a while, he heard she said in a lowered voice, oh, different paths. Sha Danan nodded. Yes, I am righteous and you are falcons. Since young, my elder taught me good and evil cannot coexist. Next time we meet, we are probably not friend but enemy. You saved me inside the mountain, I really appreciate it. This gratitude, in future if fate allow, I will repay you. Bilu stared at the blurry reflection on the clear water, quietly murmured, repay me. Sha Danan answered, yes, our favor and hatred shall be viewed separately. If not because you saved me, I will never survive. In future, if there is anything need me, I will help. Then he suddenly thought it was inappropriate, so he quickly added, but you cannot make me do things that betray my faction and morality. Bilu suddenly rose up, turned to him and said, I can see that you have talent. What about join our holy faction? I will recommend you to father. He senior always liked talented people. He will put you in high position, better than being a nameless cook at Bamboo Peak. Sha Danan's face dimmed, said, Miss Bilu, don't be silly. I am from the righteous and will never fall into falcon even threatened by death. From what I think, being a little cook at Bamboo Peak is far better than being powerful in falcon. Bilu showed a cold smile, her tone had turned biting and cold, righteous. The sins that your righteous people did are no less than us the falcon. During that battle between good and evil, weren't your celestial ancestors killed every they saw, even the old and young? Nonsense. Anger rose in Sha Danan, those deeds are what you falcon did. Do you think I don't know? You people murdered others lawlessly, destroying lives. Bilu said angrily, did you saw that happen with your own eyes? Those are what your elders told you. For their own selfish sake, how would they tell you the truth? Sha Danan laughed coldly, and did yourself saw that with your own eyes? You are telling me righteous or evil, falcon or good, but isn't that also your elders' pretty words to dress for your ancestors? Bilu startled, couldn't say anything. Sha Danan looked at her, remembered the days when they went through the difficult time together, his heart softened, lowered his voice, said softly, Miss Bilu, no matter what they did, let's not bother with it. But our Jadon has strict rules, forbidden disciples to contact falcons. I am Jadon, I cannot disobey. Today we say farewell here. When fate allow us to meet again, if you can repent, discard the dark and join the justice, I Sha Danan will use my life to ensure that you can join the righteous. He spoke plausibly, but then he paused. Bilu laughed coldly with disdain. You're trash righteous, I will not go there even if you invite me, and tell me to discard the dark and join the justice. I gave you a bright path and you refuse, then you go be your righteous. In future if we meet again, I will be the first to take your head. Sha Danan was surprised by speed of how that woman changed her attitude was faster than flipping a book. But he had no heart to argue, especially to Bilu, he always felt he owed her. He saluted, said, take care. Then he turned, walked away without looking back. Bilu watching him walk away without even turning his head back once. After he disappeared in the woods, all that sudden, her heart had become empty, like she had lost something important. Her spirit was drained, and she slowly sat down. Her eyes unwittingly landed on the ashes from Sha Danan's roast rabbit last night. She was rooted on the ground, unknowingly, tears came out. She was sitting there like this, staring at the ashes, until she suddenly discovered the pleasant singing of birds in the woods had become silent. It was like they felt strong hatred smell and caused them unable to make sound. Then, she saw a shadow, slowly came out behind her and enveloped her. Although it was still morning, the sky had turned dark. Bilu quickly turned her head, stared at the person who was standing behind her. After a moment, she cried sadly, Dad! And fall into that person's arms. That dark figure was also startled, did not expect Bilu would have such reaction. But he was glad to see his daughter escaped from the misfortune, this happiness could not hide. Sha Danan finally left Kongsang Mountain after a day of walking in the woods. If he fly, he can leave much faster. But because he worried about the wound of his left arm, he was willing to walk instead. But Kongsang Mountain sparsely populated, he couldn't see anyone on his way. After one night of sleeping in open, Sha Danan entered the main road. The road was wide and there were more people. He asked the traveler about the direction, then began walking to north. That day at noon was hot. Sha Danan had traveled for the whole day, his mouth was quite thirsty. He saw there was a small tea stall located the tree's shadow. There were already 5 to 6 people sitting. He went there and brought a cup of tea, and took a rest. The tea of the small tea stall helped him cool down and quench his thirst. Sha Danan felt relaxed after drinking a cup of tea. It felt like the day wasn't that hot anymore. He was thinking, since the injury of his arm almost recovered, at afternoon, he should find a secluded place and begin to fly. That way will be faster, and he will see his master sooner. While he was thinking, he surely knew he can soon see his Shigidi again, his heart burned with excitement. Then, he heard a moderate voice came from the roadside. "Keeper, serve me a cup of tea please." The rare soft wind of noon flew by, swinging the tree's branches, letting the sunlight scattered on the ground. The 50-years-old-looking shopkeeper answered and poured the tea. Sha Danan unwittingly turned his eyes, then he couldn't move it back. It was a middle-aged scholar, with thin eyebrows and square face. His eyebrows were cultured, but his eyes were bright and his forehead was plump, there was might within the elegance. He wore a scholar robe. A light purple jade ornament on his waist, exquisitely carved, with soft auspicious energy. This ornament was not a common item. Sha Danan stared at him for a while, then discovered he was attracted this middle-aged scholar's temperament. Once he entered the stall, including Sha Danan himself, other customers turned into silent, and were suppressed by the might of this person. Sha Danan took back his eyes. His heart was amazed, and very admiring this middle-aged scholar's temperament. Although this person was not handsome, the temperament coming from the inside was uncommon. The scholar entered the tea stall and took over the tea from the keeper, then sat down, slowly began to taste the tea. The customers that were talking now turned to silent. In the tea stall, the sudden silence was a little awkward. Only that middle-aged scholar was calm and collected, did not notice anything, drinking tea and resting alone. After a while, other customers left one by one after resting enough or finished the tea. The keeper came and cleaned up. Under the tree, only Sha Danan and the middle-aged scholar remain. Sha Danan didn't feel uncomfortable, but after sitting a while, he felt that he had rested enough. When he was about to pay the money and leave, suddenly he heard a voice called behind him. "Young mister." Sha Danan startled. The voice was gentle and familiar. He turned and saw the scholar was smiling at him kindly. Sha Danan asked, "Sir, are you calling me?" The scholar nodded with a smile. "Correct." Then he rose up, slowly walking to him. Sha Danan also rose up. When he came close, he folded his hands. "What can I do for you, sir?" The middle-aged scholar examined Sha Danan, said, "Nothing, just a bit bored from the trip, and quite interested in young mister, so come by and have a chat. I hope young mister doesn't mind." Sha Danan quickly shook his head. "No, please sit down, sir." The scholar nodded with a smile, said, "Here, young mister, please sit also." They sat down. The scholar looked at Sha Danan, said, "May I ask, what is young mister's honorable name?" Sha Danan grew up at Grass Temple Village, then was adopted by Jadon. Beside Mount Jadon Bamboo Peak's disciples, he nearly never talked to outsider. Of course, the days he was trapped in the Forsaken Abyss with Bilu didn't count. When he talked to the scholar, he respected him without reason. He respectfully replied, "It is Sha Danan, what is mister's name?" That scholar mumbled, "Sha Danan," then nodded, smiled, "My surname is Wan, plain name Ren Wang." Wan Ren Wang. Sha Danan spoke it in his heart. This name was simple, but it had a heroic type of feeling. Sha Danan glanced at him. Wan Ren Wang's face was gentle, but prestige between his eyebrows were like something he born with. With his name, there was a meaning of leadership. Wan Ren Wang in Chinese is thousands people forward. Wan Ren Wang examined Sha Danan, then smiled. "Forgive me for asking, is Mr. Zhang a cultivator?" Sha Danan was surprised. When he, Kevin and others left the mountain, they had changed their Jadon clothes into normal chothas. They looked no different than normal people. How did that middle-aged man see through it? When Sha Danan wanted to ask how he know it, that middle-aged man pointed to the north, smiled, "Mr. Zhang, are you belong to largest righteous faction Jadon?" Sha Danan was more surprised. He rose up, looked at Wan Ren Wang, asked, Mr. Wan, how do you know? Wan Ren Wang waved his hand with a smile, sit. After Sha Danan slowly sat down, Wan Ren Wang smiled. I noticed young Mr. Zhang is filled with spirit, having no sign of tiredness. Though you may look young, but far superior than many adults. Today world, cultivation becomes popular, sir must be a highly cultivated person. Sha Danan thanked modestly, but then asked, as for my faction, how does Mr. find out? Wan Ren Wang smiled. Nothing really, I see young Mr. has traveled a long way, keep looking at the north, eyes filled with thought, seem like in a hurry to return. And at north of here, there is a famous faction, Jade. It was just a wild guess, caused young Mr. Zhang laughed at me. Sha Danan quickly said, no, sir has such great insight. You and I never met before, but able to see through it clearly. I admire. This came out from his true heart. Wan Ren Wang gave a faint smile. Jade is the most famous cultivation faction for ages. Their deep mythical magic admired by the world. Young Mr. can join such famous faction at this young age, your future is bright and beyond measure. When Sha Danan heard the word, beyond measure, it reminded him of Kevern from Dragon Head Peak, and then image of Bay flashed. He shook his head. Sir overpraised me, Jade has many hidden talented disciples, I am just a piece of rotten wood, useless. Wan Ren Wang startled, then laughed, cannot expect young Mr. Zhang like to tell joke. Sha Danan was not willing to argue with him on this topic, he said, Mr. Wan is seem like traveling to somewhere, may I ask where? Wan Ren Wang stood up, both hands putted behind him, looked at the sky said, the large world is boundless, I travel around the world, mountains or ancient swamps, I go anywhere. Ah, Sha Danan exclaimed, I see. Wan Ren Wang turned around and glanced at Sha Danan, a strange smile appeared on his face, said, since young Mr. Zhang is Jade, you must be highly cultivated. Sha Danan quickly shook his head. No, I am just an useless person in Jade, nowhere near highly cultivated. Wan Ren Wang smiled a little, young Mr. Zhang is too polite. I have a presumptuous request, wish young Mr. Zhang can help. Sha Danan startled, said, Mr. Wan, please say it. Wan Ren Wang said, I admire cultivators since young, but unfortunately fate does not allow me to join. I often dream to see the cultivators using esper to fly up above the 9 skies. For decades, I wished to see a cultivator's esper. Young Mr. Zhang is a famous faction's disciple, may you help me to realize my wish. Then, he bent over and gave a bow. Sha Danan was stunned, seeing Wan Ren Wang bowed to him, he was more flustered. He quickly held him, it was very difficult for him, he hesitated for a moment and still saw Wan Ren Wang expectantly looking at him. He sighed, Mr. Wan please don't laugh at me, it is not that I don't want to show it to Mr. Wan, it is just the esper itself looks bad. I am afraid. Wan Ren Wang immediately said, there is no such thing a cultivator's esper looks bad. Sha Danan's face blushed a little, he still couldn't put away the embarrassment. He took out the fire stick from his waist, then handed to him. Seeing what he handed to him, there was surprise flashed in Wan Ren Wang's eyes, then it disappeared, he solemnly took the fire stick. Sha Danan noticed his surprisement, he smiled bitterly, I am not just saying you, even people from my faction often laugh at me for that. But then Sha Danan was surprised that himself was a little weird today. He seemed like willing to tell anything to a stranger that he never met. Wan Ren Wang did not notice Sha Danan. His eyes were on the fire stick, at first, his face was solemn but his eyes were casual. Then, he saw something, not only his face darkened, his eyes were staring at the ugly black stick. Sha Danan felt Wan Ren Wang had deep curiosity. He carefully examined the fire stick, his right hand held it while his left hand softly stroking and hitting the stick with 5 of his long fingers, very careful. Sha Danan couldn't help but asked, Mr. Wan, may I ask what's wrong? Wan Ren Wang seemed awakened from dream. Hesitated for a moment, he handed the fire stick back to Sha Danan, said, young Mr. Zhang, because I admire cultivation, I had read some books about it. There is something that need to ask young Mr. Zhang. Sha Danan said, please ask. Wan Ren Wang glanced at the fire stick, said, young Mr. Zhang, on this esper, does it contain your blood? Sha Danan was surprised, the terrible scene at the Bamboo Peak's ancient valley flashed in his mind. He immediately rose up, pointed at Wan Ren Wang, what did you said? Wan Ren Wang looked at Sha Danan, slowly said, young Mr. Zhang, is this esper a combination of two objects? One of the deepest secrets of Sha Danan's heart was pointed out by this person. This surprise was not easy. He could only felt his brain was ringing, couldn't say anything. Wan Renwang noticed Sha Danan's stunned expression, he knew his guess was correct. He lowered his head, seemed like remembered something, he sighed, you do not know this right. The orb on this stick was once a holy object of Falcon. Sha Danan became more terrified, his breath almost stopped. But there was a voice in his heart, laughed coldly, you knew this already, you knew this already. The evil surge of energy from this stick, of course it is evil object of Falcon. What did you said? Sha Danan was taking heavy breath, staring at him. This orb was the relic of Falcon founder Elder Blackheart 800 years ago. Wan Renwang's words was like nail, each were nailed on Sha Danan's heart deeply, it is called, Sinister Orb. Sha Danan was stunned, he held his breath, although there were thousands of ideas raging in his mind, but there was one image that remained there still. The skeleton in the cave inside Kongsang Mountain. Wan Renwang looked at his shocked face, paused for a moment, then lightly said, young Mr. Zhang, you now know where this orb came from. Would you also like to learn the history of this black stick? Sha Danan was shocked, couldn't said anything but to stare at Wan Renwang. Chapter 48. Small Town. Sha Danan deeply looked at the middle-aged scholar named Wan Renwang. Bad feeling rose in his heart, but in his heart, there was another energy, caused him to ask, Mister, please tell me. Wan Renwang looked at him with deep meaning, slowly said, the vicious energy of this staff is very dense. Its surface is black and the energy is restrained. If normal person get near, before getting within 3 yards, the blood of the entire body will force to rush into the heart by the evil energy and kill the person. Sha Danan's heart moved, said, correct, when I met this thing, I felt my body was heavy, wanted to vomit, and almost fainted. Wan Renwang softly sighed, correct, that's right. Then he frowned, sighed quietly, you did not die, that's weird. Sha Danan did not hear him clearly, asked, what? Wan Renwang smiled, did not answer him, he pointed to fire stick. This short black stick is an extremely wild object, name, Death Wand, but it does not belong to Falcon. It was not known by the world for thousands years, only some ancient books had recorded it. Young Mr. Zhang is very fortunately to have the two most precious objects of the world. Death Wand. Sha Danan was stunned, mumbled. Correct. Wan Renwang returned to normal, said, in ancient book less than greater than, strange metal from the sky, landed in 9 nethers, crafted with nether ghost fire and nether spirit soul. 1,000 years it was smelted into metal, 1,000 years it formed a shape, 1,000 years it absorbed the spirits of the ghost, 1,000 years obtained the ability to suck out soul. Such wild object is not a normal person can handle, but cannot expect young Mr. Zhang. Dong. A clear sound. The black fire stick fell out from Sha Danan's hand, landed on the ground. Sha Danan's limbs were weakened. He felt his chest was tightened, and fell back several steps. He stared at the fire stick that had stayed with him for these years, he couldn't say anything. Wan Renwang noticed his shocked look, a cold smile flashed across his face. Young Mr. Zhang, what is up to you? Sha Danan shook his head hard, even his words seemed pained him, he murmured, why will this happen? I am adopted under Jadon, why I will use such evil object? Then he remembered when he was in Forsaken Abyss, no wonder why the nether spirits would fear his fire stick, most likely due to Death Wand. Wan Renwang saw his reaction, realized he grew up in Jadon and never see the world before. Now he is facing such great change, he doesn't know what to do. But Wan Renwang had no intention to comfort him, he said, evil object. What is an evil object to you? Sha Danan was a bit distracted, he pointed at the fire stick woodenly, said, this thing had harmed many lives, and is it still not a evil object? Wan Renwang laughed coldly, so if it killed a lot of people, then it is evil. Sha Danan answered without thinking, yes. Wan Renwang's face was filled with disdain, the prestige between his eyebrows began to show, he looked totally like a different person. But Sha Danan's mind was in chaos, didn't notice it. Wan Renwang continued. Then may I ask Mr. Male pigs and female pigs, black pigs and white pigs, are they all pigs? Sha Danan did not expect Wan Renwang would say such. He was startled, then said, of course. And Wan Renwang said, then lions and goats, tigers and rabbits, killing each other, are they lives also? Are the difference between good and evil? Sha Danan could feel where Wan Renwang is going, but he still did not understand, so he could only say, yes. Wan Ren Wang snorted. Then ask Mr. again, your so-called good and evil, are they all human? Sha Danan startled, he wanted to refute, but the words did not come out, he could only say again, yes. Wan Ren Wang's face was solemn, looking at him deeply, until Sha Danan felt creepy, then he slowly said, young Mr. Zhang, your Jadon has a world-famous esper that is well known for ages, ancient sword regenesis. Do you know about it? Sha Danan's emotion was completely controlled by this Wan Ren Wang, he nodded unwillingly, yes. Wan Ren Wang's face darkened, said harshly, then do you know, regenesis had killed how many livings, destroyed how many lives during the good and evil in battle 1,000 years ago? If comparing all espers of the world, the one that actually killed the most people, had the most evil energy, will probably be your deity like ancient sword regenesis. Huge bang exploded in Sha Danan's head. He took a step back, it was like he was punched by someone at the face. He felt, in the deep of this heart, there was something holy that could not violate. After a soft and clear echo, the first crack appeared. The sunlight shining down through the thick leaves of the lair tree, broken down into pieces of light, landed on the ground. As the leaves swinging along the wind, the pieces of sunlight on the ground jumped like naughty children. Sometimes the light will land on the young man. Sha Danan kneeled on the ground, looking at the fire stick laying on the ground quietly. In the shadow, it appeared to be more ugly than ever. What Wan Ren Wang have said was pretty much the same as what Bilu said that day at Kongsang Mountain. But coming from his mouth, it gave a very different feeling for Sha Danan. Inside of Sha Danan's heart, it was like there was a shadow, quietly laughing cruelly, he is right, he is right. Wan Ren Wang was calmly sitting there, drinking the tea that had already turned cold. At far away, the tea stall keeper looked at them, then moved his eyes away, completely not knowing the raging ocean of anger in this young man's heart. After a long while, Sha Danan calmed himself from the worry, struggle, and pain. He slowly picked up the fire stick, stood up and facing Wan Ren Wang, coldly said, who are you exactly? Wan Ren Wang returned to his casual tone, the prestige between his eyebrows was gone. He smiled faintly, me. I am Wan Ren Wang, just a normal mortal person who travel around the world. Sha Danan glared at him, holding his fire stick tightly, said, how can a normal mortal person know so much? Are you a heretic from Falcon? Wan Ren Wang did not react, only looking at him, said lightly, as the difference between good and evil mean a lot to you. Sha Danan took a deep breath, said heavily, yes. Wan Ren Wang suddenly gave a cold laugh, then why are you still using the Falcon's evil object? Sha Danan's body trembled, but his face was determined, said, this fire stick perhaps is an evil item, but I use this to destroy the evils, it is righteous, I have no guilt in my heart, just like what you said about our ancient sword regenesis. Wan Ren Wang startled, then slowly rose up, examined Sha Danan with his eyes, it was like he met a complete new person. Smile appeared on his lips, you can think this far, rare. With just this intention, you are far better than your Jadon, no, most people in the world. Sha Danan ignored him, but glared at him said, who the hell are you? Wan Ren Wang did not answer, but said, you headed to the north, are you returning to Mount Jadon? Sha Danan startled a little, said, what do you mean? Wan Ren Wang smiled, you don't know it yet do you? The Falcon has restored power, expanding their forces. Recently they had gathered at Billow's Mountain of East Sea. Your Jadon sent many people there in meeting with other factions. Probably there will be a huge battle soon. Why don't you go and have a look? Sha Danan was stunned, said, really? But as he raised his head, saying, this doesn't concern me, I ask you again. He stopped before he could finish, just a second of work, Wan Ren Wang had already disappeared like a ghost. Even the tea stall keeper left no trace behind. Only thing left was a lonely and empty tea stall and Sha Danan. Sha Danan looked around him blankly, although he was under the sun, he could feel a wave of freezing chill. After a while of standing, he moved his feet, left the large tree and headed to east. A short while after Sha Danan left, 3 people came out from behind the large tree. The first person was Wan Ren Wang, next was the tea stall keeper, and other person, if Sha Danan see her, he must be surprised, was the Falcon girl, Bilu. Wan Ren Wang looked at the east, nodded, and showed a smile. This young man has a unbending determination, very solid mind, quite similar to me when I was young. The tea stall keeper was not the old-looking man anymore, his eyes were bright and fierce. He said, Archlord, he has our falcon treasure, why don't we make him stay? Wan Ren Wang seemed very used to be called Archlord, he said feelinglessly. For some reason, the young man had used his own blood and blood smelted the sinister orb and the death wand. Now except this young man, no one can use this esper, it is useless if we just rob it from him. Bilu snorted. I noticed that the stick is so weird at Forsaken Abyss that day, so it has such great background. Wan Ren Wang turned to Bilu, his face was very gentle, he said, Bilu, what do you think of that young man? Bilu's face blushed, she scolded, Dad, today daughter brought you here is to see what you think of him. Wan Ren Wang laughed, this youngster is not bad. It is just he is poisoned by Jadon too deep from childhood. To get him into our holy faction, with his stubborn nature, it is going to be extremely difficult. Bilu's face darkened, let out a sigh. Wan Ren Wang held his hand out, patted his daughter's hair softly, smiled, but he could untie the knot in your heart that had troubled you for years, allow us to reconcile. We need to return this gratitude. Bilu happily asked, Dad, you have a plan. Wan Ren Wang looked at the sky, a wave of prestige slowly came out, showed that he was a person who held huge power, but in his eyes, there was a little grief, he said slowly, to change a person's nature, it is difficult but doesn't mean it is impossible. Bilu was very delighted. Wan Ren Wang turned around, looked at her and smiled. This was no different than a father seeing his daughter happy. Bilu smiled to her father, but the person next to them frowned, whispered to Wan Ren Wang, Archlord, this is only a nameless brat of Jadon, does he really worth for us to spend so much effort on him? Wan Ren Wang shook his head. That young man has the most dangerous esper that the world never have seen before. He can easily control it. In future, he will not be useless. If we can have such talent, he will be a great help for my ambition, not to mention he already helped me and my daughter. Bilu nodded. I already told him that day, if he can enter our holy faction, Dad must be value him. He just doesn't listen. Wan Ren Wang chuckled. How will he listen? With his nature, and grew up in Jadon, he hate our holy faction deeply. However, sinister orb and death wand are the most dangerous objects, although strangely they become blood-smelted esper, the evil energy is restained, not showing. But carrying the two evil objects, how can there be no effect? I can predict, since this young man's cultivation isn't deep and stay with the dangerous item all day, as time pass, he will be taken over by the aggressive energy. His nature will change greatly and thirst for blood. At that time, the righteous will not let him alive, and we only need to do a little trick, he will have no choice but to join our holy faction. Then he laughed. Bilu was startled, she couldn't tell if she was happy or worried. She couldn't say anything but to look at the east blankly. Under the bright sun of noon, on the road, the young man's figure was already gone. Sha Danan left the tea stall and headed to the east by himself. It was right at noon, the sun shone on the earth. Past the Kongsang mountain, it was fields of fertilized ground. Wide and low population, there was only an old road, with many people of the past and now had stepped on, extend directly through the open plain. Sha Danan did not fly. He quietly walking on the road alone. The conversation between him and Wan Ren Wang had gave him a great crush. Although his tone was righteous and determined when he was facing Wan Ren Wang, at this moment, when he was alone, he asked himself, am I really right? The black fire stick lay peacefully at his waist. Faintly, coolness came from the stick. Walking. Under the sky, above the road, a burdened heart young man suddenly stopped, looked at the sky. The sky was clear blue, so high that could not be reached. Sha Danan looked at it blankly, his lips moved a little, eyebrows frowned together, watching the sky, like he was asking someone's heart softly. A person living in the world, what it is actually for. On the way, Sha Danan endured the hardships of the travel. When he was hungry, he caught some birds or hares. When he was tired, he slept under the tree of that night. Because he kept doing the bamboo homework, his body was quite strong, so he did not feel difficult. If he use his fire stick and fly, it will be a lot faster. But Sha Danan had no intent to do so. His mind was annoyed, there was always something bothering in his heart. So he rather to slowly walk, wished to clear the question in his mind. Since mentioned it, the problem Sha Danan has right now is how to let this young man to understand. Even if he blow up his mind, he still feel his clan's teaching is sacred. It is supposed to be like that, it will never be wrong, but as he think about Wan Ren Wang's word, it has sense and reason in it. This kept bothering him. If it was other people, his sixth Shishong Amandla for example, he will probably just laugh and throw that idea away. He is belong to Jadon, of course trust Jadon. If it is his Da Shishong Xavion, with his serious nature, he will never trust the word coming from the evil's mouth. He won't even think about it. But Sha Danan with his stubborn temper, he felt it was a challenge for his belief. He wanted to think, to find out an answer. Just like that, he had pondered and walked for 3 days, but still couldn't think of an answer. That day, Sha Danan suddenly felt there were more travelers on the road. He looked and found there was a small town ahead. It was not large, but there were many people on the road. Excitement passed through Sha Danan's heart, and forgot his concern temporary. For the past 3 days, there were not many people. Now he saw a small town, it raised his spirit. As he walked near, next to the entrance, there was a stone carved with the words, Laguna Collective. This was probably the town's name. Sha Danan entered quickly. The sound of people was getting louder. The road passed straight through the town. On the sides of the road, some were residences, some were shops, but the most were peddlers showing their goods directly on the floor next to the road. Sound of pedal hitting against his ears. It was just like a drawing of the world. Sha Danan walked into the crowd, smiled showed on his lips. When he was still young living in Grass Temple Village, he could remember it was something like that. The mortal world is a different experience than the cultivation on Mount Jadon. Dong 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 dong. When Sha Danan was still in his past memories, suddenly a sky-shocking gong sound came from the road ahead. It surprised him. Then the residents next to him increased their pace toward the sound. There were several of people talking along their way. Hurry, the chief is having a gathering speech. I think it is about that thing. Yeah, I heard the chief, Marshal Lee and Scholar Fan had discussed about it for the entire last night. I wonder have they think of a plan yet? Wish they have a plan, otherwise I don't know how I am going to live on with this. As Sha Danan heard the conversation, his curiosity was hooked, he followed the crowd. Just a minute, several hundreds of people had gathered around a stone platform in the center of the town. Sha Danan stood within the crowd of people, looking at the center. The stone platform was half man high. It seemed quite smooth. 3 people were standing on it. 2 were old and 1 was young. They were probably the chief, Marshal Lee, and Scholar Fan. When everyone was gathered, the oldest man stepped forth, waved his hand toward the residents. The residents became quiet. When it was completely quiet, the old man looked around. With a heavy tone, he said, "Folks, about today this gathering, I believe everyone already know why. 3 months ago, that devil came and began to live inside the Dark Drake Cave, 10 miles away. Since then, it kept troubling this town. And recently at this months, it was getting worse. Each night it came and robbed countless of livestock. And then, 3 days ago, the Wong family resisted for their last ox. They were, unfortunately killed in the hand of that devil." Sigh of sadness rose among the residents, some people even cursed. Sha Danan understood the picture, but he still did not know what kind of thing is the devil. The chief continued, "Old fellow is a chief, but cannot give the town peace, it is very shameful. After a discussion with Marshal Lee and Scholar Fan last night, we believe the devil is not like the normal one, not normal people like us can resist. So we are going to make a notice to ask for some cultivators to come and capture the devil. As for the cost, we need the support from everyone." After he was finished, discussion rose among the crowd. The chief is right, we really need to hire cultivators to capture the devil. If this continue, we probably going to get eaten up by the devil, why we need to care about money. Right. The 3 men who stand on the stone platform saw most of the residents had agreed. The chief was relieved, said, "All right, last night I also asked Scholar Fan to write a notice. Put the notice up." Then he nodded to the scholar-looking young man. The scholar replied, and took out a piece of paper. There was writing on it. He walked down from the stone platform and putted up the notice on a brick wall. The residents immediately gathered around it. Sha Danan also went there and have a look. The paper said, "There is a 3-tails fox spirit living in Dark Drake Cave 10 miles away from town, often trouble the town and steal livestock at night, and even harm people. But the devil magic is too powerful, we specially asking for powerful cultivators to help the people and remove the devil. Laguna Collective is willing to pay 500 silver for the work." Sha Danan knew the money was paid by the Laguna Collective's residents, and the residents were all agreed. He hesitated for a moment. He wanted to help, but as the think of what the residents and the chief said, this devil must be very powerful. His skill was weak, unable to defeat the monster is nothing, but if he dies and ashamed his master, this is not something he can burden with. When he was in hesitation, there was suddenly a disturbance within the crowd. He quickly raised his head, surprised to see a large man walking in. He passed through the crowd by softly pushed the people to the side easily like they were water. When the large man got near, Danan could see him clearly. This person's age was not old, around 20. A pair of thick eyebrows and large eyes, square face and wide ears, very fit for this surprisingly large body. Wave of prestige came out from him. Among the people, the tallest could only reach this man's shoulders. With this, he was like crane standing among the chicken. He walked to the wall, read through the notice, then, without saying anything, he ripped it off. The crowd exclaimed. The large man turned around, his eyes swept across the people around him. The residents became quiet. The large man said in a deep voice, I am, Vajra, Master, Herald of Valor, only disciple Onera. Under Master's order to come out practice. Today here, I will help everyone to do a righteous work. Danan startled, searched through his mind, he couldn't find a cultivation faction called Vajra. Everyone was staring at him. The chief and others also arrived in front of Onera. The chief carefully said, this, brave man, that devil is very powerful, not just pure strength is required to defeat it. It can be very dangerous, are you sure? That large man nodded, glanced at the chief, then said in his deep voice, you don't believe me. The chief was stared by the large eyes, his heart was a little afraid, but he forced himself said, no, I am only reminding you. The large man looked around, after a moment, his eyes landed on the brick wall that used for putting up the notice. Do you need this wall? The chief startled, asked in confused, normally it is no use. Today we just use it for the notice. Onera laughed, then shouted, move out of the way. The sound was loud as thunder, Danan felt his ears were ringing, not to mention about the residents. Everyone's face lost their color. Just a second, they stepped back and created a large opening, only the large man was standing there. He frowned and putted his hand flat, then stamped heavily on the ground with his right foot. He formed a mark with one hand. His mouth was quickly mumbling incantation, then shouted. Rise! Waves of fierce wind came out from the large man. They could hear the wind screaming against their ears. It almost knocked them over. Their feet fell backward. Gold light rose, the large man summoned a large golden spiked club. It lay horizontally across the air, glowing with gold light, with the word, Shatterer, carved on it, added a bit solemn. Everyone immediately cheered. Danan stood within the crowd and frowned. When Puji taught him the incantation of Fa and wisdom, although there was no guided him, he understood a little about Fua's art from his continuous secret practice. The spiked club Onera summoned glowed with solemn gold light and his casting posture were similar to Puji, probably has some relationship to Fua's cultivation. The glowing golden staff was very large, even larger than its owner. It was controlled by Onera in the air. Onera's eyes widened, pointed his finger, then in the whistle of wind, the spiked club crushed on the wall from the above. Everyone exclaimed, boom, within the loud bang, cloud of dust stirred. A good wall had turned into dust in the matter of second under Onera's power. Wow, every residents were stunned, then everyone turned into smile. With Onera's strong magic, to get rid of the three-tails fox spirit is very easy. The chief stepped forth, laughing, Warrior Onera has great talent, this affair is all rely on you. Onera nodded. The chief paused, hesitated then said, but there is one thing which Warrior Onera can understand. Perhaps Onera's voice was born to be deep, his voice remained the same, Senior please say it. The chief said, as for the payment, it is our residence's hard-earned money, so wish after warrior get rid of the devil first, then. But unexpectedly, Onera waved his hand, no worry. Before I departed, Master had reminded me, we righteous must step up without hesitation if there is devil, just see it as an opportunity to practice. As for money, no need to mention it. All you need to do is feed me a meal so I will have the strength to fight the devil. The chief was very pleased, such cheap thing was surely the best. He quickly replied, of course. Come with me, I will make sure you satisfy. When Danan heard Onera's word, he felt ashamed. In the past his master and Xiniang often taught the disciples like that, but now the opportunity was in front of him, he felt scared. He really shamed his master. His blood was boiling. He felt he is from a famous faction, how can he ignore this affair? Then he was about to announce his identity and go with Onera. But when he was about to do so, he suddenly heard a worry, anxious voice next to his ear. Ah, this young sir, you have a dark cloud over your head, your glabella is black, death on your face, something unfortunate is going to happen. Sha Danan was very confident, the words were at his throat and about to do a righteous thing, but unexpected to hear such word. He was surprised and took back the words. Carelessly, he stepped on a wrong spot. He stepped on a piece of dog poop. This anger was not easy. Sha Danan jumped up, but still felt his foot stink. Even with the shoe, he could feel the chill, he shivered. He turned around angrily to see who the hell was that person. There was an old man. His beard and hair were all white with a plain, clean face. He looked like a celestial, highly cultivated person. The first impression was respected. Next to the old man, there was an 8 or 9 years old girl with 2 plates. She looked playful and cute. She was enjoying the lollipop in her hand. Sha Danan was paused by the old man's appearance. He could not curse on him but to think what to say. That old man looked at his foot, there was no apology, but more anxiety. Look, look, isn't that an omen? Sha Danan was surprised, asked, what? The old man glanced at him, said in a meaningful tone, you never heard of the saying, step on dog poop, bad luck comes to you, 9 die out of 10, misery fills the sky. Sha Danan startled, said, no, but I heard my Shishong said, when someone meet a good fortune, people will say he is on dog poop luck. The old man was stunned, then shook his head, fool, fool, such nonsense. Sha Danan said, how? The old man said, put it as this way, do you step on dog poop on purpose all the time? Sha Danan was surprised, on Bamboo Peak, because he was the youngest, he sometimes need to do the dirty work. As for Tien Bullies, dog Big Yellow was. He immediately shook his head. The old man nodded, then have you seen a person step on dog poop on purpose? Sha Danan shook his head, how can there be such thing? Correct, the old man clapped his hand, if there is such thing as dog poop luck, why people avoid it, also, dog poop is a very dirty thing, so stink that everyone hates it. When you step on it, how can it not be bad luck but good luck? Sha Danan felt it was quite correct. It seemed like he self was wrong. Then as he remembered what the old man said, it was really scary. He couldn't help but let out cold sweat, said, about what senior have said about me. The old man frowned tightly, examined Sha Danan, until Sha Danan was very uncertain, he said, well, you seem to be in a great disaster. Why don't you come this way, I will give you a palmistry examine. Palmistry, Sha Danan startled, then noticed the old man was holding a bamboo pole, with a white cloth tied on it, written, Immortal's Guidance. So that old man is a fortune teller. But Sha Danan did not look down on him. The reason is because the founder of Jadon, Master Jadon was also a fortune teller. Though no one in Jadon practiced this now, but Jadon always very friendly toward the fortune tellers, or else is it that disrespect the founder? Sha Danan hesitated, but he knew when he was talking to the old man, the residents already surrounded Onera to far away already. He thought it won't be bad to let this old man to have a look at him. The chief already said that large man will fight the devil after the meal, so Sha Danan still have time. Then he turned and said to the old man, that's fine, I will need to trouble senior to help me have a look. That old man laughed, then pointed to a tree on the roadside, let us talk over there. After that, he turned away. When Sha Danan was about to follow, suddenly a clear voice said, Big brother. Sha Danan was stunned, it was the little girl who was standing next to the old man eating a lollipop. He did not know why she called him. Sha Danan looked at her rosy cheeks, she was very cute. He bended down and smiled, what it is, little girl. The little girl chewed, spitted out several nuts, looking at Sha Danan, half smiling, there is still dog poop under your foot, very stink. Ah, Sha Danan immediately blushed, jumped up and kept shaking his foot, trying to get rid of the dirty thing. The little girl looked at his embarrassed situation, she laughed, skipped to the old man under the tree. Chapter 49, Divination. Finally cleaned up the dirty thing from his foot, Sha Danan turned around and saw the little girl already went to the old man, whispered to him about something. The old man nodded and smiled. Sha Danan blushed, maybe they were saying things laughing at him. After a hesitation, he went to them, said, Senior, you said I am in great danger, what does that mean? The old man squinted his eyes, smiled, young sir, although the center of your forehead is plump enough, your cheeks are a little thin, probably not in a rich family, right? Sha Danan trusted him more. He nodded. Senior is right, I born in a farm. That old man smiled, softly hitted his robe, said normally, I see your eyebrows are quite thick, straight and high, but at the right end there is a small mole. This place indicate parents. I am afraid your parents are probably gone already. Sha Danan was surprised, he believed him even more. He nodded. Senior, you have eyes of wisdom, my parents were dead when I was young. The old man said. Why don't you hold your hand out and let me see it, young sir? Sha Danan was already quite believe in the old man. He held out his hand. When the old man was examining it with a smile on his face, the little girl suddenly came out, grabbed Sha Danan's hand. Sha Danan was surprised. The little girl examined at his hand like her grandpa, then she laughed and ran away, leaving several sticky crystal sugars. It felt really bad. Sha Danan was stunned, but he could not yell at the little child. He could only convince himself that he was unlucky. The old man handed him a handkerchief, smiled, my granddaughter is naughty, don't be mad on her. Sha Danan smiled bitterly, then used the handkerchief to clean him his hand. When he lifted his head, he saw the old man was chatting with his granddaughter again, wonder what they were talking about. The old man noticed Sha Danan's eyes, he smiled, okay, let me see young sir's palm. Sha Danan held out his hand while his eyes were fixed on the little girl, feared she will fooling around again. This time the little girl was very quiet, she only giggling at Sha Danan, wonder what she was laughing at. After a moment, the old man's face color changed, my god. Sha Danan was surprised, asked, what it is. The old man did not say much, he pointed to Sha Danan's palm, said, young sir, do you see your lifeline? Sha Danan glanced at it, did not know any meaning about it, he said in confuse, what? The old man said solemnly, I see your lifeline is very different than normal people. At the beginning, there is already a large gap. That mean there was a terrible disaster when you was young. That was so horrible that most of your family and friends were involved in it, only slim chance of survive. It seemed like your parents were unfortunately passed away during that disaster. Sha Danan's heart was sour, now he believed that old man completely. He said sadly, Senior, you are a living god. You are completely right. That old man sighed, then said, originally, you cannot escape from this disaster, but there is good fortune in your life. Between the gap, there is a new jade square, continue your lifeline and continue your life. It is a great fortune in the misfortune. Kuji's face suddenly floated in Sha Danan's mind. Silenced for a moment, he gritted his teeth, said, today Senior said I am in danger, please instruct me, is it good or bad? The old man smiled, then coughed, this. Sha Danan asked, what is it, Senior? That old man smiled. Not to hide it from young mister, when I started this business, I made a rule that I must receive payment when giving divination, so. Sha Danan realized, quickly asked, Senior, how much is it? That old man looked at him smiling, each time 10 silvers. Sha Danan putted his hand at his waist, he paused when he heard it, said, that expensive, but I only brought 4 silvers. That old man frowned, said, anyway, let it be 4 silvers then. I see fate allow us to know each other, I will help you this time. Sha Danan was very pleased. The silvers was not very useful for him anyway. He could survive in the wild. So he gave the old man 4 silvers. The old man putted the silvers into a safe spot, then examined Sha Danan's face again seriously, said, young sir, I see your glabella is black, dark cloud over your head, your luck isn't too good. If you advance there will be a lot of dangers, why don't you return, then everything will be fine. Sha Danan was surprised. That's it. The old man nodded. Correct. Sha Danan hesitated, but I have important affair to the east. Old man tried to convince him. Young sir, what is it that is more important than your life, it is better to return. Then, he saluted, we can meet here, that mean fate meant it to happen. We will see each other again in future, farewell. Sha Danan frowned, and nodded absently, watching the old and the young disappeared with the crowd of people. Sha Danan was standing there, seemed lost his direction. At the corner of the street, the old man and the little girl hid and sticked out their heads, looked at Sha Danan. That young man stood among the stream of people, he seemed lost. After a while, he turned and walked away. Ho ho, another 4 silvers. The old man's attitude suddenly changed. Took out the silvers from his waist, kept on laughing. But the little girl remained calm, peered at him, said, "Grandpa, why are you doing this again?" That old man laughed, putted away the silvers, smiled at his granddaughter. "Tana, you are really useful as my granddaughter. You can already see through the past life and yet you are not even 10 years old. When the time comes, you will be a very outstanding talent in divination." Tana snorted. "I can't see how are those easy books to be difficult. It is clear that Grandpa you did not work hard in the past, and yet you still have the face to talk about it." The one with the actual talent was Tana. She read a little about Sha Danan's fortune, and secretly told her grandpa when there was a chance. The old man was clearly very dote this granddaughter. He did not care about what she said, he smiled. "Don't underestimate the books that grandpa gave you. Mingli Ju Suan, and Yu Zhu Shang Shui, are passed down by our ancestor Jadon. That mean you are gifted at divination. If it is other people, ho ho, me for example, I can't figure out what the book is talking about for my entire life." Tana cursed him, turned around and saw Sha Danan was already gone. She turned back and said, "You said that his future is filled with dangers, what is that?" The old man giggled. "Of course I was lying to him. But what do you see from him, is he really in disaster?" Tana shook her head. "I can only read past fortune, as for future fortune, I can only know a little, can't be sure about it." Old man nodded. "Correct, past fortune is fixed, cannot change, of course it is easy. Future fortune is unknown and unfixed variable of future, it is the highest level of divination, no way it is going to be easy." Tana shrugged, followed her grandpa walking, said, "But from what I can see, that person's fortune is very awkward, it is the chaos life, the most difficult to predict in the divination book. This life is pretty rare. No need to bother with him, we get the money anyway. Come, grandpa bring you to eat." "Oh, right, grandpa, you mentioned about Master Jadon. You always said our ancestor was from Jadon, why don't you go there and tell them? With the position Jadon hold today, and your age, aren't you going to have good food and anything you want?" "Shush." The old man was surprised, looked around and saw no one heard them, he relieved, whispered, "What does a little girl like you know? Jadon is the best cultivation faction of the world, all we know is just the divination from Master Jadon. If we go there mindlessly, they probably going to think we are scammer and jail us for several hundreds years. And beside," he smiled, the celestial-like manner when he was talking to Sha Danan Reapered, "Itaniska is not the type of person who flatters the powerful." Tana startled, said happily, "Grandpa, can't expect you to have such moral, is it really?" "Ah." Before she could finish, Taniska's eyes brightened, he stepped forth and stopped a rich-looking fat woman, said solemnly, "Madam, I see you have a dark cloud over your head, your glabella is black, death on your face, something unfortunate is going to happen. What about let me to give you a divination, how it is?" Tana was stunned, but her grandpa kept giving her a look, so all she could do was pretending to be naive and cute, carefully examine that rich, fat woman's face. Sha Danan walked across the street, unwittingly he had left the small town. He got delayed while he was in the town, also with thing in his mind, Sha Danan discovered it was dusk already. The sun shining in a slanted angle, marked the night sky with bright red fire, also pulled his shadow. It was already night, every houses had went back home. There was no one outside of the town, only he was there, very lonely. He looked at his own shadow, his heart was frustrated. From what he heard from Wan Ren Wang, all righteous factions were sent to East Sea, Billows. He could guess his master Tien bullies will probably be there. He wanted to reunion with them, but today he met an old immortal that told him not to go there. But if he returned to Jadon and discover no one is there, what should he do? Since the time he escaped from forsaken abyss of Kongsang Mountain, he wished he could see his master as soon as possible to tell them he is safe. But these days with many things in his mind, he was slowed. But today something told him to turn back, he couldn't make the decision. When he was uncertain, suddenly footsteps came from behind him. He turned around and saw it was the large man Onera. He was leaving the small town. When he got near, he stopped, glanced at Sha Danan, then ignored him. He looked at the sunset at the west, murmured to himself, "Where the sun is at is the west, the chief said the Dark Drake Cave is 10 miles to the north. It should be that way." As he found the correct direction, he began walking to that way. Sha Danan heard it, then yelled, "Onera, warrior, are you going to Dark Drake Cave?" Onera startled, stopped and turned around looking at Sha Danan and said, "Correct, who are you?" Sha Danan's mind was racing, he thought. Since I can't go to the east, why don't go take out the devil with this man? When master asked about it, I did a good deed, it is easier when talk about it in front of his master. After he made the decision, he smiled. I am also a cultivator, I saw everything clearly today inside Laguna Collective. I was planned to go with you, but there was some affair that caused delay. But fortunately I got here in time, does Mr. willing to go with me? Onera examined Sha Danan, said in a deep voice, this is not for fun, there are many dangers. I see your age is not old, which faction are you from? Sha Danan startled. Onera's age was not old either, and with his naturally honest, simple looking, Sha Danan did not expect him to say such thing. He smiled. I am under Jadon, head of Bamboo Peak Tien Bolis. The level of cultivation is still basic, I will still need Mr. Shi's assistance. Onera was surprised, widened his eyes, said, what, you are a Jadon? Sha Danan nodded. Yes. Onera's eyes were filled with admire, said, ah, sorry. Jadon is the top cultivation faction today. I have already heard Jadon's amazing arts are admired by the world. For the disrespect that just happened, please forgive me. Sha Danan was stunned, his mind was glad that his clan was so well known out here, he smiled and replied, Mr. Shi overpraised me. Let us go in there together so we can help each other when we are trying to get rid of the devil for the people. Onera laughed. Good. Dark Drake Cave located in the wood at 10 miles north of Laguna Collective. On the way, Sha Danan and Onera had got used to each other's name during the conversation. Sha Danan was a honest person. Onera's body was large, but he was not rude, but passive, also a honest type of person. The two were soon calling others' name directly. The sky began to darken, with the remaining sunlight weakly shining at the ground. Sha Danan saw the woods were getting thicker, they were probably going to arrive at the forest soon, he called out, Brother Shi. Onera answered. What? Sha Danan said. Today morning I saw you summoned a golden, spiked club esper with solemn energy. And the incantation seemed like belonged to the Fuwa. Although I heard Fuwa does not have spiked club, but I feel that is a Fuwa item, am I right? Admire flashed through Onera's eyes, he said. Xiao Fan, you are really live up to be a Jadon disciple, you know a lot. Sha Danan flushed. Onera spoke again. We Vajra have very little number of people, normally just one heir per generation. My master Herald of Valor encountered me in a small, remote village. He said my courageous potential is just perfect for practicing his Vajra cultivation. He senior had once said that back in ancient time, Vajra has relationship with Fuwa. But the distance of time is long, no one remember anything. Generations after generations, the incantation had became very different, cannot be compared to Sky Song the true Fuwa cultivation. Then Onera paused, he smiled. My master said, although my cultivation is not high, also without many Buddhist rules, as a cultivation, we need to do some good deeds. So if encounter any devils, we must get rid of them. Sha Danan was admire, said, ah, your master is so cultivated. Onera nodded. Yeah, my master is very righteous. Sha Danan smiled quietly, but then strangely he remembered the conversation between him and Wan Ren Wang. He secretly thought, if Onera's master know the esper I am using is also an evil object, is he probably not going to let his disciple to travel with me? Then again, the elders in Jadon will also hate this evil object badly. And then, what about himself who is using the evil object? Am I already an evil person? Sha Danan turned silent. Onera assumed Sha Danan was being vigilant since they were getting closer to Dark Drake Cave. He didn't mind it. He, too, searched through the surrounding, prepared for a battle with the devil. The sky, finally darkened. When the first star rose from the edge of the sky, the two arrived at the outside of the forest. Onera took a deep breath, told Sha Danan, I heard the chief said, the Dark Drake Cave is inside the forest. The cave is rich with blackstones. In the past, the local residents often came here and used the blackstones to repair the road. Of course they can't go here now. The cave is unpredictably deep, we need to be careful. Sha Danan nodded, thought, no matter how deep it is, it won't be deeper than the Forsaken Abyss in Kongsang Mountains Cave of Fangs. The two prepared themselves, just when they were about to step into the dangerous place, suddenly, at 10 yards away from them, there was a panic cry. Ouch! They startled and turned to the sound. Sha Danan was very surprised. There were two people running toward to them from the right, they were the one that gave him a divination during the day. The little girl was still fine, but old man was gasping for air. Where was the celestial manor? Sha Danan stopped in front of them, said, "What happened, you two?" Tanis Ka was in a hurry and suddenly saw a person appeared before him. He was surprised, but then he realized it was the silly boy earlier, so he was relieved. He looked back and saw the road was quiet, no sign of anyone. He exhaled a long breath, stopped the pace, and told his granddaughter Tana, "Tana, stop running now, seemed like that person did not follow us." Tana was breathing heavily, but her hand was still holding a strand of lollipop. It was appeared she really loved that kind of sweet. After she heard what Tanis Ka said, she stopped running after a distant, gasping for air. Onera arrived next to Sha Danan. Seeing the old and the young were like homeless dogs, he asked, "What it is?" Sha Danan also have the same question. But before he speaks, Tana was already complaining loudly, "It is all because of you grandpa, scammed that fat woman is not enough, and still went to that young lady. I already saw that she is extremely sharp, you think we can trick her?" Tanis Ka said angrily, "You didn't tell me this earlier, it got me, grandpa, slapped by that woman. It is still hurt right now. If not because I have ancestors' secret art of earth sync, we are all ready." Before he could finish, there was a clear shouting suddenly came from the night sky, "Old scammer, let's see where you can go." Everyone was surprised. A beam of white light struck toward Tanis Ka from the sky in the speed of lighting. Tanis Ka did not know any cultivation, and since he was unprepared, he did not have time to use any tricks. He was about to get hit by white light. Sha Danan couldn't ignore it, for they knew each other a little, and also the situation is dire. Although from what they said, he felt he was scammed by them, but at this moment he couldn't care much. He waved his hand, the fire stick flew out and blocked the hit for Tanis Ka. Bang! A loud noise. The white light was blocked. A surprised female voice came from the air. After the white light disappeared, a lady landed on the ground before them. After that, Sha Danan was stunned. The lady was in a watery green dress, a little golden bell hanging at her waist, making clear ring, a jade clear white flower between her fingers. At this moment, her face was smiling. She was no longer looking at the old man, but her pair of bright eyes were looking at Sha Danan. She laughed softly, "So timely, Sha Danan. Who can this be if it is not the Falcon Girl Bilu?" Chapter 50, Fox Spirit. Sha Danan startled. He could never expect to meet her again so soon. He wanted to refuse to admit it, but after all, going through life and death together in Forsaken Abyss Blooddrop Cave had left him a bit of feeling. He could only smile embarrassingly. "How come you come here?" Onera noticed Sha Danan was acting a little weird. He asked, "Xiao Fan, who is this person?" Sha Danan blurted out, "She is." Then he realized if others know Bilu's identity, plus his relationship with Bilu, it will be great trouble. He pulled back the words from his mouth. Onera was puzzled why Sha Danan stopped. Bilu smiled, said, "Don't ask him, we only met for short time, only saw each other for once, he doesn't know anything about me." Onera got it, but seeing Sha Danan's face, he suddenly gave a weird smile, and whispered in Sha Danan's ears, "Brother Zhang, I see your expression isn't right, do you like that lady?" Sha Danan was shocked, face immediately turned pale, quickly said, "You can't speak irreasonable like this, I have no relationship with her." Bilu was looking at him filled with smile, but after hearing what he said, her face darkened, snorted, laughed coldly, "Correct, why would I have any relationship with this shameless, dirty thing?" Everyone startled. They thought of her delightful surprise look on her face when she saw Sha Danan, and now turned back on him faster than turning a book, plus the shameless, dirty, in her words. Everyone was looking at Sha Danan with a strange look. Sha Danan was very embarrassed, did not know how to explain it. But from anyone's eyes, they would probably think it is just argument between a pair of couple. Everyone smiled. Onera looked at the sky, told Sha Danan, "Brother Zhang, the time is getting late, we should get going." Sha Danan was very eager to leave this embarrassing situation. He quickly answered, but as he spoke, Bilu suddenly shouted, "Old scammer, stand still for me." They turned around and discovered Tanis Ka and Tana were trying to sneak away, but they were spotted by Bilu. The heart-ending flower in Bilu's hand glowed with white light again. The chill energy rose. Sha Danan was surprised and immediately stopped walking, said, wait. How did they offended you?" Bilu glared at Sha Danan, seemed like she was still angry, said coldly, "None of your business." Sha Danan was rejected right in his face, he became a little gloomy. But Tanis Ka had suffered from Bilu, Now there was a person who was willing to stand up for him, how can he let it go? He quickly said, "Young mister, you need to save me. When I was in the small town, I gave this lady a divination due to kindness, but she ignored the truth. When it was not as same as her wish, she began to use violence on us." Bilu said angrily, "Lies, you old scammer, filled with mouthful of lies, scam money from people, and now you frame on me, you ask for it." Then she moved her hand, the white light of heart-tending flower brightened, shined the surrounding like morning. Seeing she was about to strike, Sha Danan said in hurry, "Bilu, wait." But it was like Bilu did not hear it. After a second, heart-tending flower left her hand, flashing in midair. After a soft sound, just in an instant, the bright white light had caused the moon and the stars to lose their color. The sky was filled with bright and shining petals with strong fragrance hitting against the nose. This was a very rare scenery, but in Tanis Ka's eyes, it was like seeing a ghost. Color loose from his face, he immediately grabbed Tana and ran while his right hand reached into his clothes, took out a small yellow paper. It looked quite similar to Taoist's talisman that used for capturing ghost. Sha Danan knew the power of Bilu's esper, and Tanis Ka on the other seemed like he did not know any cultivation. Sha Danan stepped forth and stood before Tanis Ka, summoned the fire stick in front of him and helped Tanis Ka to block this round. Bilu frowned as she saw Sha Danan suddenly came up. A smile flashed across her face, the flowers in the sky suddenly stopped in midair, dancing before Sha Danan. Her face remained stern, said coldly, "What are you doing?" Sha Danan glanced at her, his heart was scared a little, mumbled, "They are not cultivators, why you make it difficult for them, can you let them go?" Bilu snorted, waved her hand. The flowers in the sky suddenly flew back and reformed into a white flower under the radiance of the moon and the stars, returned to her hand. "Why don't you ask him what happened?" Sha Danan was also wondering. He turned and began to ask Tanis Ka. At first Tanis Ka was still trying to cover the truth, but Bilu kept on interrupting at the important part. With that going, Sha Danan and Onera understood what happened. After Tanis Ka successfully earned money off from the fat, rich woman, with his greedy heart, and noticed Bilu's clothing was expensive, he went to her without caring Tana's eyes that were trying to signal him to stop. But Bilu was extremely intelligent that cannot be comare to normal people, how could she get fooled so easily? At the beginning, Tana was correct with Bilu's past. But Bilu continued asking, Tana could not tell Tanis Ka directly, so Tanis Ka made up stuff and immediately showed the flaw. Bilu turned rage and about to teach the two scammers a lesson. Tanis Ka realized he was in great trouble. He knew nothing about cultivation, but he still got some life-saving teaching that passed down from Master Jadon, and that include art of earth sinking. He used it to escape for a moment. But his skill was not good enough, unable to control the direction, coincidentally landed near Sha Danan and Onera. Bilu was not expected that old man will do that, but she was Vim Archlord's only daughter after all, such little trick could not trouble her. With only one spell, she immediately found out the old man's location, then came after him in the blink of an eye. Sha Danan startled for a while, stared at Tanis Ka, said, "So my dangerous future you have told me this morning is fake." Tanis Ka rolled his eyes. Before he got the chance to speak, Bilu already laughed, "So you fell into his trap." This laughter immediately melted her icy cold look. Sha Danan was very embarrassed. He thought helping Tanis Ka was very not worth it, and he was ashamed in front of Bilu. He straightened his face and walked away. Tanis Ka was surprised and his heart complained. Onera saw the embarrassing situation. He reminded Sha Danan, "Brother Zhang, we should go in there, the affair is important." Sha Danan nodded, ignored other people and entered the woods with Onera. Bilu, startled, asked, "This forest is filled with evil energy, what are you two doing?" Sha Danan answered, "We are going in there to get rid of the devil." Then he pulled Onera, entered the forest in quick pace. Onera turned his head and looked at Bilu and the old man, then followed Sha Danan. The scene turned quiet instantly. Bilu colded her face and turned to Tanis Ka. Tanis Ka immediately held up his hand before his chest, ready to defend himself, but can he manage to do that was another story. Unexpectedly, Bilu did not attack. Pondered for a moment, she asked Tanis Ka, "Do you know what are they doing in there?" Tanis Ka startled. He was also in Laguna Collective, surely he knew what it is. He said, "Of course, there is a dark drake cave inside of the forest, a three-tails fox occupy there. They are going to get rid of it for Laguna Collective." "What it is?" Bilu snorted, lowered her eyes, said quietly, "With his little bit of cultivation, he Tanis Ka saw that she was lost in thought. It was a great opportunity and how could he let it go? He took Tana's hand and walked away stealthily. When Bilu's mind returned, they were already gone far, only shadows of their back remain. With Bilu's skill, catch up to them is piece of cake, but it seemed like she had no intention to do so. Instead, she turned and stared blankly at the darkening forest under the color of moon. Sha Danan and Onera entered the forest. The woods were tall and lush, blocking the moonlight, caused the forest became dark. As they walked, the surrounding was silence. In the deep of the forest, there was a veil of thin fog. They looked at each other. Onera whispered, "Be careful." Sha Danan nodded. They summoned their espers, cautiously advanced. After a while of walk, the ancient trees were towering to the skies, waves of yin energy surrounding them. It seemed like they had arrived at the deepest part of the forest. At that moment, they suddenly heard a soft, plaintive lady voice coming out from the fog among the woods. Small pine hill, moon as frost. Man like wandering flower and hurt. Few decades, 3,000 years. But wish we still remember each other even we are separated. The female sound was mildly, softly whispering. Though they couldn't see her, they could feel the sadness coming from her. Sha Danan and Onera looked at each other, their faces changed. It was deep midnight, and in this desolated place, it was most likely the spirit devil. The two cautiously walking toward to the sound. The thin veil of fog soon swallowed them. Not long after they entered, a green figure appeared at the spot where they stood, looking at the fog in the darkness. She frowned, pondered for a moment, then entered it. The color of the night dimly shining in the woods. Few lines of moonlight passed through the gasp of the leaves, shined at the wood, softly waggling. Around them, there was only the quiet sound of the insects. Suddenly, Onera grabbed Sha Danan's shoulder. Sha Danan was surprised, said, "What?" Onera said quietly, "Listen." Sha Danan paid attention. He heard a soft sigh coming from ahead. A beam of moonlight, like a beacon in the darkness. A line of cold moon, softly shining at the fog, directionlessly flowing. A white-clothed lady slowly came out from the deep of darkness. She stood under the light, looking toward them lightly. Sha Danan and Onera held their breath. She was a gentle and charming lady. Long and straight beautiful hair lay on her shoulders, as soft as water. On her white skin, there was a pair of graceful eyebrows, a delicate nose, a light red lip. Her watery eyes looked at them as it was like they can see through their heart. She was a type of girl that could cause people to feel sad for her. She timidly standing under the moonlight, staring at them. The time seemed stopped at that moment. "You are coming to kill me?" she asked ghostly. Sha Danan and Onera were surprised. Onera bit his lip, stabled his mind, shouted, "Are you the devil called Three-Tails Fox Spirit?" Her watery eyes swept across Onera, then Sha Danan's face. Sha Danan could felt it was like his face was touched by a gentle hand. He was surprised. He could not imagine there can be such bewitched woman. She was totally not a human. She did not answer, only frowning her eyebrows. It was like a line of sadness carved between her eyebrows. She looked at the moon again. The bright moon was flawless, hanging in the sky. "It is me," she said ghostly. The night was dark, it seemed like there was something hiding in the darkness behind her. Onera darkened his face. The large golden spiked club, Shatterer, glowing with gold light in his hand, turning the nearby woods into gold. Sha Danan stood next to him, taking deep breath. The lady didn't react. She glanced at them, then walked away softly to the side. Her snow-white sleeve softly waved. The bushes moved away, showed a well. Looking at it from far away, they could see moss on the stone of the well. It appeared the well was very old. She walked next to the well, looking down, she softly combing her hair with her hand. They did not dare to move from seeing the strange action she was doing. The lady's voice drifted within the forest. "This is a 3,000 years old well. Legend said when you look into the well with a sincere wish during the full moon, your wish must be realized." In her voice, there was sadness, "But, since I arrived here, I have looked into it 3 times, why, his illness still isn't getting better." Sha Danan and Onera were stunned. From her tone, it was clearly a sad lady who was trapped by love. But Onera's mind was more solid than Sha Danan's. He frowned, stepped forth. The sound of the wind rose in the forest. He said angrily, "Shameless devil, you dare to bewitch the people, hurry come here and receive your death." That lady turned around, her watery eyes glanced at them, ignored Onera, but looked at Sha Danan. She suddenly said softly, "In your heart, is there a girl you deeply missed? Come and have a look." Wind went past the forest, the chill got heavier. The treetop was rustling, Sha Danan was blank, unwittingly he took a step. Onera was surprised. Without saying, he rose up in the air, the Shatterer's golden light glared, whistled in the air, and crushed toward that lady's head. With such strength, not to mention a weak woman, even a tough man will still get crushed into sauce. That lady's body was like fallen leaf, blew off by the strong wind of Shatterer and float backward, dodged Earth's shattering strike. After that, she floated in the air, opened her arms. After a moment, the devil energy became very strong. The sound of the devil howling. At the same moment, in the darkness behind her, countless of large eyes opened. When Onera was unaware, with countless of wild calls, many dark black, vicious shadows came out from the darkness, past the lady's white figure and rushed at Onera with their claws and fangs. And that lady was not looking at Onera, her gentle eyes were looking at Sha Danan, who was walking to the ancient well step by step. The moonlight shined on him, like frost, like snow. In the deep of his heart, is there a person he missed deeply? He was out of his mind. Xiao Fan, a cry came from behind. Bilu appeared, quickly flew to him, said in a hurry, "Do not look." At that instant, Sha Danan startled. The gentle lady in the mid-air who was watching him, her face changed a little. But then, he still looked into it. So, deeply looked into it. The sound of the wind stopped, everyone held their breath. What did he see? Onera roared and shocked away the monsters. His large body grabbed the Esper Shatterer. Red glow flashed on his face, it was like blood was about to come out. He charged up into the air, then sudden fell down like a loosened arrow. Puff! Shatterer inserted into the earth deeply, his mouth gave a heaven-shocking roar at the same time. Shatter! It was like the entire stopped at this instant. The earth within 2 yards diameter suddenly sunk in along with the trees. It was like a giant invisible hand pulled everything to underground. Only the earth near the well where Sha Danan was standing did not get affected. The Shatterer that was inserted into the ground absorbed something, the entire staff was shining brightly. As Onera shouted the word, shatter, countless beam of light came out. As swift as lightning, they struck on the black shadow monsters in the air. At that moment, the pitiful scream lingered at their ears. Some black shadow monsters fell on the ground, some just disappeared into thin air. The gentle lady's face changed, her face became pale, said, "Absorb earth and trees spirit into devil-destroying energy, Shatterer staff." Onera finished deal with the monsters, his first action was to look at Sha Danan. Bilu also stopped, looking at him. Sha Danan raised his head. His face was nothing unusual, just a little confused. But he soon became sober. He stood next to Onera, facing the gentle lady floating in midair. That lady looked deeply at him, suddenly said, "What did you see?"